also being joined virtually by some of our other dignitaries and special invitees who could not make it physically to this occasion, but it's my duty to name them because with the process, in due course, they'll also be joining us with their messages and being virtually present as far as this occasion is concerned. We have President IGS, Professor John Ludden, who's also with us. We also have a co-chair Appropriate Authority to 36 IGC, Professor Chandrama Saha, President INSA, and we have co-chair Appropriate Authority 36 IGC, Dr. M. Ravichandran, Secretary, Ministry of Earth Sciences, who's also going to join us virtually. And we have Honorable Minister of State for Communications, Sri Devi Singh Chauhan Sahab, who's also going to be with us. In fact, he's already with us virtually. And we're also going to have a message received from Sri Rao Sahib Patil Danve, Honorable Minister of State for Mines, Coals and Railways. And we'll also have the special presence of Dr. Jitendra Singh, Honorable Minister of State, Independent Charge for Earth Sciences. And we are also going to have our Honorable Union Minister of Mines, Sri Prahlad Joshi, as a part of special invitee as far as this occasion is concerned. Of course, there's going to be a lot of attractions. We'll exactly start at 2 p.m. as per the schedule. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we were always knocking at the doors of the event way back in March 2020 when the 36 IGC was to be held in the actual format that it was conceived. But that could not happen because of the sudden advent of pandemic that shook the entire world. And intermittently, it has been intruding into our lives, and we have never been able to come out of that. It was a great solace, and it was a great silver lining that we identified in the form of this virtual event that we are presently holding. And of course, that's a great solace before we move on to the next event, which is going to be held in South Korea, in the city of Busan. Of course, it's a long-standing tradition that IGC has been following for years together, and it is rightly called the Olympic of, as far as geology is concerned. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we will require your patience for another few minutes. We are almost there. Just 3 to 4 minutes from now, we are going to start because we are connected virtually, online, to so many people across the globe. Therefore, we need to adhere to the timings that we have kept, and obviously, we'd like to stick to them. So just a few minutes before we can start the entire proceedings, and of course, it's going to be a very fascinating one. We require your cooperation and participation to make it a grand success. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I, on behalf of the organizing committee of this event, extend a very warm welcome once again to all our participants and guests present here, and those who are glued to the moment virtually from India and across the globe. We welcome you to the inaugural ceremony of the 36th International Geological Congress being organized today here in this wonderful auditorium of FICCI in the national capital of New Delhi. Well, this program, which is labeled with the theme, Geosciences, the Basic Science for a Sustainable Future. First and foremost, we'd like to extend a hearty welcome to our special invitees and dignitaries on the dais and those who are connected to us virtually. As far as the event is concerned, we are really delighted to be organizing the 36th IGC in its abridged format from what it was originally conceived to be. Slated to be held during March 2020, the event met with rough weather, and that was largely unprecedented. And the pandemic that shook the entire world took everyone by surprise, and it lingered unabatedly without a sunset clause. In fact, dealing with normalcy for the last couple of years has been the biggest predicament of mankind. And today, this little window of opportunity to organize this event on virtual platform gives us all a reason to smile, be happy, and also admire the silver lining that has come suddenly in sight. The resurrected yet attenuated Congress in virtual mode may appear as an insignificant event in time. However, it stands tall as a mark of triumph of human spirit over disease and decadence. The next 3 days, in fact, next couple of days from here, will give the scientific community to see and lend their ears to an agglomeration of geoscientists who are extremely experienced in their different walks of duty, and they will be sharing their experience about the fascinating pages of history of Mother Earth, and through the deliberations, they'll be reaching out to millions of people. Of course, it's a golden opportunity for us to listen to them and to be aware of all the developments that the science of geology has seen in the recent years, ever since the last event was held in South Africa. Well, the idea of this event is to focus on the subject of sustainability and how geoscience can play a pivotal role in addressing the same. Ladies and gentlemen, we are extremely thankful to you for having gathered here in numbers, and especially those who are connected to us virtually. And without you, this event or this particular occasion would not have been half as successful that it is. If time were money, you've spent millions on us today by being a part of this occasion, and we heartily welcome you once again to the inaugural ceremony of the 36th IGC. Can we make it louder with a huge round of applause coming from everyone, please? Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for that support received from your end. And moving forward, we would now like to make way for our first speaker, who is presently steering the aspirations of the premier geological organization, the Geological Survey of India, as its Director General, which is also the nodal organization for the event. Ever since he was honored to preside this prestigious event, there has been some relentless support and guidance coming up from him despite his soaking engagement in discharge of his duties at the helm of affairs of the organization he is heading. Firm geological background that he has acquired through his decades of service to the premier geological organization, his presence and participation in today's event is viewed with tremendous respect and reverence. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome Sri R.S. Garkal, President 36 IGC, for his welcome address, please.
Thank you, Akhori. Honorable Union Minister of Coal, Mines and Parliamentary Affairs, Sri Prahlad Joshi, Honorable Minister of State, Independent Charge for Science and Technology and Earth Sciences, Minister of State in PMO, Personnel, Public Grievances and Pensions, Atomic Energy and Space, Dr. Jiten Singh, Honorable Minister of State for Coal, Mines and Railways, Sri Rao Saheb Patil Danve, Honorable Minister of State for Communications, Sri Devu Singh Chauhan, President IUGS, Professor John Luden, Dr. Alok Tandon, Secretary, Ministry of Mines, Dr. M. Ravichandran, Secretary, Ministry of Earth Sciences, Professor Chandrima Saha, President INSA, and dignitaries on the dais, plenary speakers, eminent scientists, representatives from 37th IGC LOC, and all other dignitaries present here and joined virtually, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome all who have joined from all corners of the globe to witness the participate in the 3-day virtual 36 IGC 2020. The 27th second IGC was held in New Delhi in 1964. It is a proud and cherishable moment for the Indian geoscientific community that once again the prestigious global scientific event is being held on the Indian soil. The 36th session of the Congress was being hosted by India after winning the bid in the year 2012 in the 34th IGC session at Brisbane. Bangladesh, Nepal, Pakistan and Sri Lanka acted as co-host. The Congress, scheduled to be held between 2 to 8 March 2020, attracted 6,832 abstracts from 122 countries, leading to 287 symposia, 13 plenary lectures and public talk by luminaries, 38 professional workshops and several business meetings. 33rd field trips were developed to showcase the magnificent geology of the Indian subcontinent. However, dreaded COVID-19 pandemic forced us to postpone the event as some delegates had already arrived. 36 IGC successfully conducted 6 pre-Congress trips. Global continuation of the COVID-19 pandemic forced the event to be rescheduled twice to November 2020 and then to August 2021. Finally, with the support of IUGS, the Congress is now being organized in a hybrid mode, considering the overlapping time zone of the member countries. The live program has been scheduled from 2 to 4 p.m. IST with complimentary registration for all. The theme is Geoscience, the basic science for a sustainable future. A panel discussion and 8 plenary lectures by eminent geoscientists has been planned following the inaugural ceremony. Scientific publications like 2 volumes of Indian report to IUGS and tectonic map of India will be released today along with the 36th IGC abstract volume, 3 coffee table books and 2 commemorative stamps. The prestigious IGC Cup received by us at the 35th IGC in South Africa in 2016 will also be virtually transferred to the President of 37th IGC to be held in 2024 at Busan, Korea. I sincerely wish the organizers of 37th IGC best of luck for successful conduct of the event. As the President of 36 IGC and Director General Geological Survey of India, I thank all the distinguished delegates and the organizers for their unbeatable spirit. I extend my heartiest gratitude to IUGS, Ministry of Mines, Ministry of Earth Science, INSA for providing continuous support. I once again extend a warm welcome to the entire geoscientific community to attend the virtual 36 IGC. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, sir, for that welcome address. You helped us take a peep into the past and also gave us a taste of things to come in the next 3 days as far as this Congress is concerned. We deeply acknowledge your participation and contribution to the event. Well, moving forward, ladies and gentlemen, I take this opportunity to welcome our next speaker, a professor from Heriot-Watt University, who is now the President IGS. Professor John Ludden is UK's second geoscientist to lead the International Union of Geological Sciences, which comes to him as a magnanimous accomplishment. Pledging for the need to address climate crisis and providing resources for the planet, Professor Ludden represents a legacy of deep-bred talent and expertise in the field of geoscience. Having joined the university he represents as a bicentennial research professor, he held a number of influential roles in geosciences, including leading the BGS as its chief executive officer, and prior to this as head of the earth sciences as director of the CNRS France. Today he brings along the goodwill of IGS under the aegis of which the International Geological Congress is held. Please put your hands together and welcome Professor John Ludden, President IGS, who joins us virtually.
Thank you very much. Dear honored guests, dear colleagues, it's a pleasure to finally be in a position to open the 36th IGC. The International Union of Geological Sciences was founded in 1961. It represents over 1 million geoscientists. It's one of the world's largest geoscience organizations. It encourages international cooperation and participation in the earth sciences in relation to human welfare, and it's a member of the International Science Council. IGS promotes and encourages the study of geological problems worldwide and supports and facilitates international and interdisciplinary cooperation in the earth sciences. IGS gives special consideration to international standards, to global geoscience education, to geoscience information and data, and to geology serving the United Nations sustainability goals. The International Geological Congress, the first one being in 1878, was incorporated into the IGS 60 years ago when IGS was created. We've delayed celebration of our anniversary until this year, and the IGC 37 in Delhi is now part of the 60th IGS celebration. I thank the IGC Organizing Committee for the enormous efforts that they put into managing the IGC through the COVID epidemic and recovering from the postponement of the meeting that was due to be held 2 years ago, and also their substantial efforts with IGS in reimbursing the registration fees to participants. It's really unfortunate that many participants have been unable to visit the beautiful sites of India and its spectacular geology. India and its associated countries are part of the planet where the geological sciences are fundamental to ensuring its resources in minerals, energy, and water, and where sustainability of the earth is of overriding importance. The IGS is pleased to include many Indian geoscientists in its commissions and programs, and our collaboration will continue and be strengthened in the coming years. We support the geological sciences across the world with national memberships in more than 60 countries and participants in more than 120 countries. Currently, we're concerned for our Ukrainian colleagues and have made a statement on this issue. I again would like to thank our Indian colleagues for bringing this meeting together and for passing the International Geological Sciences Cup to Busan in the Republic of Korea. I dearly look forward to visiting India and my Indian geological colleagues in the near future. Thank you very much once again for bringing this meeting together, which I'm sure will be a great success. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, sir, for addressing this wonderful occasion on that is the inaugural ceremony of the 36th IGC. And ladies and gentlemen, may we inform you that with its membership representing 115 countries and regions, 8 commissions, 4 working groups, and 38 affiliated organizations, IGS is one of the largest and the most celebrated geoscientific associations of the world. Today, having the momentous presence of its president, Amit Sats, virtually, with all his support, makes this moment priceless. Thank you very much, sir, not only for your kind presence, but also the value addition that you bring along with you. Well, as our next speaker, I have the pleasure of introducing Professor Chandrima Saha, a name standing out in the scientific fraternity. A biologist by profession, she is currently the president of the Indian National Science Academy and distinguished chair professor of National Academy of Sciences at the Indian Institute of Chemical Biology, Kolkata. She has held prestigious positions in the past as former director and former professor of eminence at National Institute of Immunology. She also earlier served as vice president international INSA. She is an elected fellow of the World Academy of Sciences, Indian Academy of Sciences, and West Bengal Academy of Sciences and Technology. The list of awards, recognitions, and honors have followed one after the other as a testimony to her work of scientific sleuthing. And these decorate her achievements across 3 decades, reiterating her continuous contribution to the field of science. The Biopharma Lifetime Achievement Award for 2021, the Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Medal for 2019, Om Prakash Bhasin Award for 2015, and Pushpa Srimachari Foundation Day Oration Award 2014 are just a few in her kitty of achievements which reflect her magnanimity in the field of science. Ladies and gentlemen, cannot wait any longer to invite Professor Chandrima Saha, Co-Chair Appropriate Authority, 36 IGC and President, Indian National Science Academy, who joins us virtually with her address. You're welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. Honorable Minister of Science and Technology and Earth Sciences, Honorable Minister of State for Communications, Honorable President of 36th IGC, President of IUGS, Honorable dignitaries, and distinguished guests. It is my great pleasure to address a gathering of professionals and elite geoscientists of the world on this virtual platform. The Indian National Science Academy, or INSA for short, is mandated by the Government of India to act as an adhering organization for all International Council of Science-related activities, including the IUGS and the IGC. In 2012, at the 34th IGC held at Brisbane, India made and won a bid to host the 36th IGC in 2020 in the National Capital Region of Delhi. This was a great opportunity. As a constituent of 3-member appropriate authority, several INSA fellows worked hard to shoulder with representatives of the entire Indian Geological fraternity for organizing the 36th IGC. Senior INSA fellows took a lead in heading the science and field programming committees. The significant scientific inputs by the INSA and its fellows in organization of this mega event in March 2020 was appreciated by the entire scientific community. The sudden onset of COVID pandemic few days before the scheduled event robbed us of the laurels and appreciation that we would have earned for an excellent scientific event. As a compromise with the all-pervading corona infection, which still makes a look at the future uncertain, we have resorted to a truncated 36th IGC on the virtual platform. I'm sure that this is going to be a grand feast, and I wish a grand success to the 3-day virtual interactions of global audiences with some of the best known names in the field of geoscience. All my best wishes for this Congress. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, madam, for that virtual presence of yours, and also for encouraging this moment, which could have been incomplete without you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, may we inform you that the Indian National Science Academy, established in January 1935, promotes science in India and harnesses scientific knowledge for the cause of humanity and national welfare. The indefatigable support received from INSA as one of the major partners of 36 IGC is exemplary, and we do extend our gratitude to you, madam, for being the support and for leading from the front. Well, moving ahead, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to introduce our next speaker, Dr. M. Ravichandran, who assumed charge as Secretary, Ministry of Earth Sciences since October 2021. Riding on a firm academic background, he is a doctorate in physics from University of Pune. You have served as director at NCPOR Goa during 2016-21, and earlier as a scientist in Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology, Pune during 1988 to 1997. You have had defining stints at National Institute of Ocean Technology, Chennai, on the turn of the century, and at Indian National Center for Ocean Information Services, Hyderabad, during the first decade and a half before joining at NCPOR. You've held influential positions of repute as Vice President of Scientific Community of Antarctic Research, and as Council Member to International Arctic Science Committee, Council of Managers of National Antarctic Program, Antarctic Treaty System, besides much more. With your present responsibility as Secretary MOES, you bring along experience, poise, capability, and authority to lend wings to aspirations of Ministry of Earth Sciences, and it is an honor for all of us to be welcoming you as Chair Appropriate Authority of 36 IGC. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome Dr. M. Ravichandran, who joins us virtually.
Honorable Union Minister of Parliamentary Affairs, Coal and Mines, Government of India, Sri Prahlad Joshi. Honorable Union Minister of Science and Technology and Earth Sciences, Independent Judge, Dr. Jitendra Singh Ji. Honorable Minister of State for Mines, Coal and Railways, Sri Rao Sahib Patil Danve. Honorable Union Minister of State in this Ministry of Communications, Sri Devsingh Chauhan. Secretary, Ministry of Mines, Sri Alok Tandon. President of Indian National Science Academy, Dr. Chandrima Saha. President of IUGS, Professor John Luton. President of 36th IGC, Dr. Rajendra Singh Gargal, DG CSI, distinguished speakers, panelists, geoscientists from all over the world. A very good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I am glad to note that 36th International Geological Congress, which was originally scheduled in 2020 and got postponed due to COVID-19 pandemic situation, is now being held virtually. We had hoped to have an in-person meeting in India, but the COVID-related restriction forced us to go virtual. I wish the conference a great success and look forward to the other opportunities for hosting you in India in near future. Ministry of Earth Sciences is a unique organization established by Government of India to holistically look and study all 5 spheres of the Earth system, such as atmosphere, hydrosphere, geosphere, cryosphere, and biosphere. The mandate of the Ministry of Earth Sciences is to provide services for weather, climate, ocean, and coastal states, hydrology, seismology, and natural hazard, and also to export marine living and non-living resources in a sustainable way, and to explore all 3 polar regions, Arctic, Antarctic, and Himalaya, including to reveal the past history of Mother Earth. MOES was in the forefront of the bidding process of the IGC ever since 2004, when India could not succeed in winning the bid. In 2012, MOES and Ministry of Mines, under the umbrella of IUGS National Committee, led by the Indian National Science Academy, made the successful bid at the 34th IGC at Brisbane. It will be worth recalling the then Secretary, Ministry of Earth Sciences, was chosen to be the President of 36th IGC initially. In 2012, Government of India mandated MOES and Ministry of Mines as 50-50 partners for holding this mega event. Geological Survey of India under the Ministry of Mines was chosen to act as the nodal agency. The execution of the program was undertaken under the IGC Society, with the support of the scientists from Indian National Science Academy, Ministry of Earth Sciences, and with the help of Geological Survey of India. The 36th IGC was planned meticulously and was ready to open the Grand Geoscientific Congress in March 2020, as mentioned by previous speakers. However, the COVID pandemic pushed us to a corner and forced us to compromise with the short duration of virtual session. With the persistence of a few dedicated individuals in the 36th IGC team, we have today reached that destination and formally witnessing the opening of this event, for which every Indian geologist was waiting since 1 decade. I understand in the next 3 days, various top-level geoscientists will discuss and deliberate various geoscience topics which are relevant today. On behalf of Ministry of Earth Sciences, I wish the 36th IGC a grand success. Thank you all for joining the event. Jai Hind.
Well, thank you very much, sir, for joining this occasion in your capacity as Chair Appropriate Authority for 36 IGC and also providing an insight into the event. Ladies and gentlemen, we inform you that the MOES, as one of the major partners of event, has since beginning extended phenomenal support to the event almost like a guardian, and your kind presence today on this occasion gives an opportunity to all of us to acknowledge all of that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, moving ahead now, we now have the pleasure of lending our ears to someone at the helm of affairs in Ministry of Mines. He is diligently handling very critical, crucial, and sensitive responsibilities and translating the vision of governance into reality through mature and professional administration. An Indian administrative officer from the batch of 1986, he has an impeccable track record of envisioning, strategizing, and implementing plans for operational and financial turnarounds, and his experience in long-term project management, resource management, and negotiations with regulatory bodies sees him in his present portfolio as Secretary Minister of Mines as a very experienced bureaucrat. The road less traveled that the organizing committee of the 36 IGC had to maneuver after the abrupt postponement of the event reverted back to normalcy, not without the insight and vision of our senior-most officer of the Ministry of Mines. We request Shri Alok Tandon, Secretary Minister of Mines and Chair Appropriate Authority, for his kind address.
Honorable Minister of Mines, Coal and Parliamentary Affairs, Shri Prahlad Joshi ji, Honorable Minister of State, Independent Charge, Dr. Jiten Singh ji, Honorable Minister of State in the Ministry of Mines, Shri Rao Sahib Patil Danve, Honorable Minister of State for Communications, Shri Devi Singh Chauhan, President IUGS, Professor John Ludden, Secretary Ministry of Earth Sciences and Co-Chair 36 IGC, Dr. M. Ravichandran, President INSA and Co-Chair 36 IGC, Professor Chandrama Saha, Director General GSI, Shri R.S. Garkhal, all renowned geoscientists from all over the world, other dignitaries joining the inaugural session, ladies and gentlemen. I am very happy to join you at the inaugural session today of the virtual 36th International Geoscience Congress, or IGC. It is my privilege to be associated with this edition of the IGC, which is an apex forum of the geoscientific community. The geosciences have left its indelible mark on the course of human civilization in the Stone Age, Copper Age, Bronze Age, and the Iron Age, and it continues to do so in the present. The findings of geoscientific research have aided scientific progress in no small measure. From a policymaker's perspective, one can say that the knowledge and insights that geoscientists offer ought to blend into policy actions for the overall benefit of the stakeholders. In India, the policies in this area have been underlined by several mining reforms, especially since 2015. These have been aimed at boosting mineral production and availability, improving the industry's competitiveness through ease of doing business, and improving social responsiveness. Friends, the mineral and mining sector faces an acid test today for sustaining its growth potential across economies. The resource endowment in mineral-rich regions throws up a challenge and an opportunity for geoscientists. It's a challenge because of the imperative to graduate to low-carbon mining operations, and it's an opportunity because of the immense economic benefit to the nations and the people that it can render. The growth model we follow is not only based on mineral resources availability, but also on their cautious exploitation. And yet, we are ready at a stage where superficial mineral deposits are fast depleting. The geoscientific community needs to step in to help meet future requirements by unearthing more deep-seated sources for minerals we require. Focus is also needed for exploration of strategic and critical minerals that are essential for making energy-efficient products like EV batteries. When we talk of mineral resources, we often tend to sidestep the frontiers, but as we all know, the offshore has great scope in several marine resources, particularly phosphorites, gas hydrates, and seafloor massive sulfides. Ladies and gentlemen, the mineral sector is one of the key contributors to the economic development. The pursuit of growth and a higher standard of living has placed a huge demand on the natural resources. However, its utilization and sometimes exploitation by mankind over centuries has made our ecology somewhat fragile. In a scenario such as this, and in the context of future growth expectations, geoscientists have a unique contribution to make. Though their knowledge about the structure and evolution of Earth spanning the geological ages, geoscientists are in a position to offer answers for sustaining the growth process while ensuring that the coming generations are able to meet their own needs. 11 out of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the UN cover different areas of geological sciences. Geoscientists can thus play an important role in meeting the SDG targets and addressing some of the societal and environmental challenges we currently face. Through a high-level forum like the IGC, geoscientists can come together for dissemination of knowledge among the peer group and policymakers to ensure a better tomorrow. I wish the 36th IGC the very best. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, sir, for that kind address. Ladies and gentlemen, Ministry of Mines, Government of India, as a major partner for the event, has been guiding authority in taking all major critical decisions, without which things may not have moved in the desired direction. You individually, sir, as the chair of appropriate authority, have been the vanguard of all decision making and providing the guidance in helping us achieve what we all appreciate as a team today. Thank you very much for your kind address. Ladies and gentlemen, moving forward, we now are honored with the presence of a dignified guest and special invitee, Honorable Minister of State for Communication, Shri Deva Singh Chauhan. Young and energetic that he is. The formative years saw him attaining his technical degree in electrical engineering, and having served the organization in the government for almost a decade and a half, he revisited his passion to serve his subjects, shifting his attention towards mainstream politics. There was no turning back ever since, and the achievements that followed one after the other is not only awe-inspiring, but is an epitome of commitment, hard work, and determination to arrive at the pinnacle of glory. Having a very compassionate feel for his subjects, his approach to serving people touched the hearts of many. In 2007, he was elected as the member of the Legislative Assembly, repeating the feat in 2012, and in 2014 was elected as Member of Parliament as an outcome of the 16th Lok Sabha elections. Having served several standing committees with phenomenal contribution, he always creates space to indulge in his hobbies, like traveling incognito, finding time for music, and making books as his credulous companion. He was deservingly chosen to serve as the Honorable Minister of State for Communication in July 2021, and under his watchful eyes, the Ministry of Communication promises to reshape the social, economic, political, and cultural landscape of the country with cutting-edge communication tools, and thus creating an ecosystem which fosters strong and equitable development as requisites of good governance. Ladies and gentlemen, we are simply delighted to have his kind presence, though virtually, and I request him to kindly address the occasion on the inaugural ceremony that we are all a part of today. You're welcome, sir.
उपस्थित माननीय श्री प्रहलाद जोशी जी, ऑनरेबल मिनिस्टर ऑफ माइंस, डॉक्टर जितेंद्र सिंह जी, ऑनरेबल मिनिस्टर ऑफ अर्थ साइंस, श्री राव साहब पाटिल दानवे जी, ऑनरेबल मिनिस्टर ऑफ माइंस, कोल एंड रेलवेज, डॉक्टर आलोक टंडन जी, सेक्रेटरी मिनिस्टर ऑफ माइंस, डॉक्टर एम रविचंद्रन जी, सेक्रेटरी मिनिस्टर ऑफ अर्थ साइंस, प्रोफेसर चंद्रिमा शाह जी, प्रेसिडेंट INSA, प्रोफेसर जॉन डुदेन, प्रेसिडेंट IUGS, प्रोफेसर स्टैनले सी फिनी, सेक्रेटरी जनरल IUGS, श्री राजेंद्र सिंह करगल, डायरेक्टर जनरल जियोलॉजिकल सर्वे ऑफ इंडिया, श्री जनार्दन प्रसाद, ADG, जियोलॉजिकल सर्वे ऑफ इंडिया। भारत में हाल ही में रंगों का त्योहार होली मनाया गया है। मैं इस सम्मेलन में उपस्थित सभी गणमान्य व्यक्तियों और प्रतिभागियों को होली की हार्दिक शुभकामनाएं देता हूं। हर साल हम होली का त्योहार मनाते हैं, जहां इस दिन हम होलिका दहन में सभी बुराइयों, बुरी भावनाओं, दुश्मनी को जला देते हैं और अगले दिन हम दोस्ती, प्रेम और सहानुभूति जैसे जीवन के अनेक रंगों से भरे आनंद का एक नया दिन मनाते हैं। माता भूमि है, पुत्रो अहम पृथ्वी है। ये धरती हमारी माता है और हम सब इसकी संतान हैं। भारत सरकार के डाक और टेलीग्राफ विभाग को पर्यावरण संरक्षण के साथ एकजुटता दिखाने के लिए 14 दिसंबर 1964 में भारत में अंतर्राष्ट्रीय भूवैज्ञानिक कांग्रेस का आयोजन किया गया, उसी उपलक्ष्य में हमने एक विशेष डाक टिकट जारी किया। उस टिकट पर पृथ्वी का चित्र है, जो भूवैज्ञानिकों का कार्यक्षेत्र है। जियोलॉजिकल हैमर जो आपका विशेष साधन है, हम वह हथौड़ा हैमर पृथ्वी की कक्षा के रूप में दर्शाया गया है। आज आधुनिक दुनिया को ऊर्जा, दूरसंचार, बुनियादी ढांचे, परिवहन के साधनों और विकास के हर पहलू की मांग को पूरा करने के लिए धातुओं और खनिजों की अधिक मात्रा और विविधता की आवश्यकता है। यह बुनियादी धारणा है कि खनन का क्षेत्र सस्टेनेबल नहीं है, लेकिन हमारे माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के नेतृत्व में हमारी सरकार के द्वारा पिछले दशक में खनन के साथ साथ सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट के बारे में भी जो सोच थी, उसमें पूरी तरह बदलाव आया। इन प्रयासों में खदानों और खनन कंपनियों के द्वारा जवाबदेही में सुधार करने के लिए कई दिशा निर्देश योजनाएं और नए प्रोटोकॉल की शुरुआत की गई। इसका मुख्य उद्देश्य खनन के लिए एक स्थायी और जिम्मेदार दृष्टिकोण को लाना है। हम खनन के क्षेत्र को कैसे और अधिक जिम्मेदार और नैतिक रूप दे सकते हैं, इसके बारे में प्रयास किए जा रहे हैं। भारत आने वाले 25 वर्षों को अमृत काल के रूप में मना रहा है। हम आत्मनिर्भर भारत को विश्व का प्रमुख अर्थतंत्र बनाने की ओर बढ़ रहे हैं और सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट हमारी प्रमुख अवधारणा है। हम तेजी से विकास करना है, अपने देश और दुनिया की जरूरतों को पूरा करना है, लेकिन साथ ही माँ पृथ्वी की रक्षा करते हुए अपने संसाधनों का ऐसा बेहतर इस्तेमाल करना है कि हमारे आने वाली जनरेशन उससे वंचित न रहे। यही सोच है हमारे प्रधानमंत्री। भारत का ये दृढ़ विश्वास है कि खनन के साथ साथ पर्यावरण का संरक्षण भी किया जा सकता, और जब कंपनियां खनन की गतिविधियों के साथ साथ उसके दुष्प्रभाव को कम करने के लिए प्रतिबद्ध होती हैं, तो ये समस्या कम की जा सकती है। हमारे कानूनी ढांचे के अंतर्गत सभी कंपनियां विश्व विरासत स्थलों और संरक्षित क्षेत्रों में खनन गतिविधियों को कम करने के लिए प्रतिबद्ध। भारत खनिजों का उत्पादन करने वाला और निर्यात करने वाला एक महत्वपूर्ण देश है। भारत 95 खनिजों का उत्पादन करता है। खनन क्षेत्र देश की अर्थव्यवस्था में एक महत्वपूर्ण योगदान करता है। माइनिंग से होने वाली समस्याओं में ड्रिलिंग, धूल प्रदूषण, ध्वनि प्रदूषण और पर्यावरण वाले वेस्ट मटेरियल का गलत ढंग से प्रबंधन करना पर्यावरण के लिए और जल को प्रदूषित करने का एक बहुत बड़ा कारण है। इन मुद्दों का समाधान करने के लिए हमारे यशस्वी प्रधानमंत्री माननीय नरेंद्र भाई मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में भारत में वर्ष 2016 में पर्यावरण के लिए और खनन के लिए विशेष कानूनी ढांचा को अपनाया गया है। भारत ने खनन क्षेत्र में सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट को सुनिश्चित करने के लिए नीतियां, नियमों, कानून की एक सारणी निर्धारित की है, जो अंतर्राष्ट्रीय नियमों के अनुरूप है। पर्यावरण, वन और जलवायु परिवर्तन मंत्रालय इस संबंध में नियमन करता है। हमारी सरकार ने एक ऐसा तंत्र तैयार किया है जिससे छोटे खनन ऑपरेटर भी अपना सकते हैं। खनन उद्यमियों के विनियमन और बेहतर व्यापारिक तौर तरीकों को बढ़ावा देने के लिए हमारी सरकार ने वर्ष 2019 में पृथ्वी और पर्यावरण के लिए एक नई नीति को भी अपनाया है, जो वैश्विक रूप से पर्यावरण संरक्षण के प्रति हमारी सरकार की प्रतिबद्धता को दर्शाता है। हमने हमेशा मानव जाति, पेड़ों, पर्यावरण, वन्य जीवन के सह अस्तित्व में विश्वास किया। हमारा मंत्र जियो और जीनो दो। मैं सभी रूपों में पृथ्वी पर जीवन की भलाई के लिए प्रार्थना करते। आज इस अवसर पर 2 स्मारक डाक टिकटों को जारी किया जाए और मैं इनके माध्यम से सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट के प्रति भारत की प्रतिबद्धता को व्यक्त करता हूँ। जय हिंद।
Well, thank you very much, sir, for your kind presence on the virtual platform and for also sparing time to be a part of this occasion. We also look forward to having you in our future programs as well. Ladies and gentlemen, moving forward from here, we are simply honored to also have amidst us as our special dignitary, the Honorable Minister of State in Mines, Coal, Railways for the Government of India, Shri Rao Sahab Patil Danve. Besides being a valued member of several standing committees, you served as Union Minister of State, Minister of Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution 2014-15, and then again in the 17th Lok Sabha for the period in 2019-21. You assumed the office as Honorable Union Minister in Coal, Mines and Railways in July 2021. Your stint in the current portfolio is equally awe-inspiring, being a thoughtful, hard-working and visionary leader. You're extremely popular for your yeoman service to the community and deep-rooted interest in social welfare programs. Ladies and gentlemen, may we welcome Shri Rao Sahab Patil Danve, Honorable Minister of State for Mines, Coals and Railways, who addresses the occasion with his message virtually.
नमस्कार। आज की 36 भूगर्भीय कांग्रेस के उद्घाटन समारोह में आपके बीच यहाँ उपस्थित रहकर अत्यंत खुशी हो रही है। मित्रों, आज शुरू हो रही इस कार्यक्रम का विषय जियो साइंस सस्टेनेबल भविष्य के लिए बेसिक साइंस, ये हमारा आज का विषय है। आज दुनिया भर के सभी देश सस्टेनेबिलिटी और पर्यावरण को लेकर चिंता व्यक्त कर रहे हैं। पूरी दुनिया के एक्सपर्ट्स इस विषय पर रिसर्च और परिणाम स्वरूप सोल्यूशन लेकर सामने आ रहे हैं। दोस्तों, आपको बताना चाहूँगा कि हमारे प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में हमारी सरकार विकास के साथ सस्टेनेबल भविष्य और पर्यावरण में संतुलन बनाए रखने के लिए अनेक कदम उठा रही है। इसी कड़ी को आगे बढ़ाते हुए मुझे विश्वास है कि भारत में हो रहे 36वीं अंतर्राष्ट्रीय भूगर्भीय कांग्रेस में सस्टेनेबल भविष्य और जियो साइंस की अहम भूमिका के बारे में परिणामक चर्चा होगी। देश विदेश से सहभागी हुए वैज्ञानिकों और इस क्षेत्र से जुड़े लोगों के लिए यह कार्यक्रम अत्यंत उपयोगी होगा। मुझे विश्वास है कि युवा शक्ति की प्रतिभा को इससे प्रोत्साहन मिलेगा। इस कार्यक्रम के आयोजन के लिए सभी मंत्रालय तथा भूगर्भीय कांग्रेस के सभी अधिकारियों का अभिनंदन करता हूं और इस अंतर्राष्ट्रीय भूगर्भीय कांग्रेस की सफलता की कामना करता हूं।
Well, thank you very much, sir. We are extremely grateful to you for having joined this occasion from a distance despite your preoccupation, and this indeed gives us a lot of encouragement to further excel in our endeavors. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we now have the pleasure of requesting for the kind message of our special invitee, who besides being a medical practitioner of repute by profession has been, as a part of his political career, identified for numerous and diverse responsibilities, arguably making him an individual with prolific experience and capabilities. After his very successful campaign in duties during the 16th Lok Sabha campaign, he was re-elected to the 17th Lok Sabha with a thumping victory, after which, besides revisiting his earlier served portfolios, was also entrusted as Minister of State for Earth Sciences, Science and Technology, Minister of State in PMO, Ministry of Personnel, Public Grievance and Pension, Department of Atomic Energy and Department of Space since July 2021. An avid reader, he has between the covers authored several books, over 10,000 published literatures in articles in newspapers and journals. Besides this, a plethora of awards and recognitions which have regularly aligned as a testimony to his unfailing potential to rise to the occasion. His bestseller, As Diabetes Made Easy, and syndicated weekly column Trails of Travesty have been enthralling generations of leaders. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome for his message, Shri Jitendra Singh, Honorable Minister of State for Mines in Independent Charge.
Respected Shri Prahlad Joshi ji, Honorable Minister for Parliamentary Affairs, Coal and Mines, Secretary, Ministry of Mines, Secretary, Ministry of Earth Sciences, President, Indian National Science Academy, President and Secretary General, International Union of Geological Sciences, and distinguished geoscientists and other members of the scientific fraternity. Namaskar to everybody. At the outset, I must express that it gives me an immense pleasure to be amongst you all on this occasion of the inauguration of the 36th International Geological Congress. It is indeed a matter of great happiness that the event, popularly described as the Olympics of Geosciences, is being participated and discussed by the best brains in the sphere of geoscience realm. I also understand that the 36th IGC, which was originally scheduled in 2020 and got postponed due to COVID-19 pandemic, is now being held virtually. We hope to have an in-person meeting in India, but the COVID-related restrictions forced us to go virtual. I wish the conference a great success and look forward to other opportunities of hosting you in India in the near future. Ladies and gentlemen, I am also happy to learn that the 3-day event will feature a panel discussion on a very important topic and also talks by eminent geoscientists from across the world. I am sure the outcome would be of great significance and relevance, and the proceedings would be closely watched by scientists, technologists, miners, students, and policymakers with a keen interest. As we all know, the relation between man and earth science is intricate and very delicately balanced. Geosciences play a crucial role in ensuring the maintenance of this balance and making the future sustainable. I therefore appreciate the efforts made by India and all the other nations in this mission. We are waiting with great enthusiasm for the experts to come out with the conclusions of the Congress. Before I conclude, I take this opportunity to thank one and all for your support in making this event happen. I especially thank the International Union of Geological Sciences for their constant support and cooperation in all our endeavors. Wish you a great success once again, and Namaskar.
Well, thank you very much, sir, for your gracious presence, and ideally we would have liked having you in person, but we would not like to miss out on the opportunity the next time there is a chance to have you with us. Well, ladies and gentlemen, moving forward, we now request for the message of Honorable Union Minister, sir, for Coal, Mines and Parliamentary Affairs to address the gathering. Though, before doing that, it shall be an honor to introduce him briefly and present a passing glimpse of his charismatic and workaholic statesman who has achieved so much in a small time span. He has always had a humanitarian outlook towards cause of poor, downtrodden, apart for his concern towards social, regional and national issues. As recognition to his hard work and dedication, he was elected as a Member of Parliament with a thumping majority in 2004, followed it up with 2009, 2014 and again in 2019 from the Dharwar constituency of Karnataka. His guidance and leadership to steer the aspirations of Ministry of Mines is already yielding rich dividends and taking the nation to heights of unprecedented glory. Unfortunately, time doesn't permit us to dwell deep into each of his contributions, and missing inadvertently on any one of them is something we would not like to happen. I would only say that we are blessed to have his perpetual concern towards his subjects. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome Honorable Union Minister of Coal, Mines and Parliamentary Affairs to the Government of India, Shri Prahlad Joshi. Well, to see him perform live could be somebody's gain, but not to have his presence felt will be a definite loss. And despite his preoccupation, he makes an effort to join us with his message.
Namaskar. Senior ministers attending the inaugural session of the 36th International Geological Congress, secretaries and other senior officials, eminent geoscientists, professors, delegates and attendees who have joined us from around the world today virtually. I extend my warm greetings to all. The IGC is rightly called as the Olympic of Geosciences. The IGC presents a platform for the nationals, for the nations and the stakeholders across the world to come together and the power the geoscientific community on the global level. It is a matter of pride for me to be the part of this international congress, which has a long history of over 140 years. I am informed that since the first Geological Congress held in Paris in 1878, there have been around 35 such events so far. This is a proof of increasing the relevance of the global geoscientific community. I would like to take this opportunity to thank scientists, researchers in geological science in India and across the world. They are truly the world citizens, and their understanding of geological systems of the earth help us every day as we move forward. Talking about my country, the geological survey in India began somewhere at the beginning of 19th century. However, the journey has started much before that. As you all must be aware that about 150 million years ago, India, South Africa and Australia were the part of the Gondwana supercontinent. Gradually, India drifted apart, and about 40-50 million years ago, Himalayas were formed. Today, India produces over 95 minerals. We have abundant reserves of mineral resource. We must realize our true geological potential, increase our exploration and make best use of abundant resources. With our efforts since 2015, as soon as Sri Modi ji took over, and further reforms in the past 2 years, we have been able to increase the pace of mineral exploration. Because of our joint efforts and reformative steps under the leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji, mining sector is flourishing, employing around 12 million people in India. With continuous support of our geoscientific community, Indian government is committed to tapping the mineral reserves of the nation in sustainable manner. The country's obvious geological potential area has increased to 6.88 lakh square millimeter, and area under the exploration has increased from 10% to 30%. This achievement is worth applauding. Boost in exploration has been possible due to our government support to the geology discipline and expertise our geoscientists in GSI. Geological exploration has helped India unlock the millions of opportunity. We have allowed the private exploration agencies to get accredited and carry out the mineral exploration. With this reform, I am hopeful and confident that India's geological potential and mineral exploration are going to touch a great heights with the more participation and advanced technologies. Geology has a very strong impact on the entire value chain of the exploration and mining. This is why, with the best mind in geosciences, Geological Congress can develop a vision for the future. We invite the investors, explorers and scientists to come up and explore the huge opportunity that the Indian mining sector offers. With this, I express my gratitude for the platform that allows the nations to come together and exchange the innovative ideas about the geology discipline. I am informed that 58 years ago, India had hosted the 22nd edition of the IGC, and the 36th IG which we are hosting is happening when the country is celebrating 75th year of India's independence. Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. This year is a year of full of celebrations, opportunities, aspirations and the actions. As our Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi has given a call for the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav to commemorate 75th year of India's independence, I am confident that participants of this Congress will benefit from the informative panel discussions delivered by some of the leading geoscientists of the world. I give this you all. I wish all the best. Best wishes to all. Thank you. Dhanyavad.
Well, thank you very much, sir, for your words of encouragement, in-depth knowledge of the state of affairs and contribution to this occasion, which only proves that you're a strong team player with a connoisseur of excellence. Well, sir, we are thankful to you for your kind address and also for extending your blessings for the success of this event. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we take a small breather here and make way for some releases. And we mark this auspicious occasion with the release of 2 commemorative postage stamps of 36th IGC to be released by Shri Dev Singh Chauhan, Honorable Minister of State for Communication. And for the very same, may I request the Chief Postmaster General, Delhi Circle, to present the first album for release by Honorable Minister Sir, and also request Honorable Minister Sir to kindly do the honors. Well, thank you very much, sir. Now, I also request our dignitaries on the dais to kindly join the moment in release of the postage stamps, which will be on display on your screens. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen on the dais. You are requested to kindly take your seats. And ladies and gentlemen, the occasion also befits the release of few scientific publications prepared for the purpose of 36 IGC in its original format, but could not be done because of the constraints posed by the pandemic. And we request our dignitaries on the dais to kindly do the honors of release as I talk about them briefly in the sequence that I'm giving. First is the abstract volume of the 36 IGC, which is a rich compilation of more than 7,000 abstracts. Filtering this huge number, 6,832 abstracts were selected for oral and poster presentations, compiled as an ebook. The same goes for release today. May I request the dignitaries to kindly release the same. Can we freeze this important and historic moment with number of photographs that can be taken on the occasion? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We move forward, and there is a coffee table book of 36 IGC related to geotourism hotspots of India, which is again a very enriching compilation of 78 geotourism sites in parts of the subcontinent. This is also an offering for the release, and I once again request our dignitaries to kindly release the same. I once again request the photographers to take as many photographs. These are wonderful moments that need to be treasured in times to come. Well, moving forward, there is a special issue of the Proceedings of Indian National Academy of Sciences, an Indian Report to IGS 2016-20, and may I request the same to be kindly brought before the dignitaries on the dais for them to kindly release them. Gentlemen of the dais, may we request you to kindly keep standing for some time. It will be a little trouble for you, but still we would like to hurry up with this affair as quickly as possible. Thank you very much. With just 2 more publications on the way, and there is a geological and tectonic map of Indian subcontinent as Indian Report to IGS. Again, this is from INSA, and we would like this to be released as well. We request the dignitaries on the dais to kindly do the honors, please. Well, ladies and gentlemen, these are wonderful readable propositions, and once you lay your hands on these books, obviously you will have wonderful takeaways as far as the contents of this book are concerned. Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And finally, on release on this auspicious occasion, we have two CTBs, or coffee table books, from Geological Survey of India, namely Sundarban Geology and Geotourism, prepared by Marine and Coastal Survey Division, Eastern Region Geological Survey of India, and the Thar Desert, prepared by the Western Region Geological Survey of India. Having earned its name as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, the book emphasizes on coastal erosion, accretion levels, anthropological impacts, and ensuing environmental degradation with view on mitigation. The other book on desert environment pictorially exhibits the sand dunes, the saline lakes, the calcrete-bearing ephemeral fluvial systems, and other aspects. So these are wonderful two coffee table books. One is on Thar Desert and other one on the Sundarbans. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, on the dais for having done the honors. And these were the releases that were lined up for today's ceremony. And ladies and gentlemen, moving forward from here, it is now time for handing over the IGC Presidential Cup. And with the dust having almost settled and the organizing side able to pull off this consolation of holding the 36th IGC in its abridged format, we need to move forward to uphold the long tradition of holding this prestigious event in the years to come. The takeaways may not be commensurate to the years of planning, preparation, and most importantly, the excitement that came with winning of the bid. But the scientific community needs to take solace from the fact that the challenges posed by the pandemic was unnerving and unsettling for the world and humanity. Republic of Korea takes the baton from here to organize the ensuing event in Busan in 2024, and they deserve all the congratulations and good wishes for the same. Can we have a big round of applause for the next IGC in Busan 2024? Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to celebrate this moment by handing over the IGC Presidential Cup to President 37th IGC, who joins us virtually. And for the very same, may I request Professor Dheeraj Mohan Banerjee, former professor and head, Center of Advanced Study in Geology, University of Delhi, and fellow of the INSA and emeritus scientist, to do the honors and kindly share a few words on the handing over. You're welcome, sir.
Dear colleagues, I introduce myself. I am Dheeraj Mohan Banerjee, Chair, Indian National Committee for IUGS and INQA. I stand here to perform a most pleasant task of handing over the IGC trophy to our colleagues in Korea. And I do so with a sense of nostalgia of hosting this prestige for the past 6 years, which was supposed to happen after 4 years. At this very time, I have a mixed feeling of euphoria when we won the bid in 2012, several stages of despair and fatigue during the preparation of sadness of last-minute cancellation due to COVID, and of consolation of at least hosting a truncated web event. Our bid was aimed to use the excellent platform that an IGC provides, to use it effectively for human resource development, to inform those who make policies, and to educate the public at large. A bit was achieved, but a lot was not due to COVID, but I'm sure that our worthy successors will take the geoscience torch to higher heights so as to rebuild the trust between science and society through effective geoscience services. On behalf of the Indian geoscience community, I solemnly pledge all our support to IUGS and to our colleagues in Korea so that they can deliver geological sciences at the highest level, both in conceptual as well as in application space. I wish IUGS and Koreans all the very best for continued success. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, sir, for that wonderful address, and we do appreciate your love for the science of geology and what kind of Herculean efforts you have taken in order to make this revised format 36 IGC a grand success. We owe a lot to you for your contribution that has absolutely been fabulous as far as realizing this moment is concerned. Well, thank you, sir, for participating in this historic moment, and we would also request you and all other dignitaries on the dais to kindly step forward from their right and lift in jubilation the Presidential Cup and participate in its handing over to the President 37 IGC.
Good afternoon. I'm Won-Suk-Ki, President of the Geological Society of Korea. On behalf of the Geological Society of Korea, I'd like to express our sincere gratitude and respect to the organizing committee members of the 36th International Geological Congress, the IUGS staff, and all those people who made today's successful handover of the Presidential Cup in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. We hope that the 37th International Congress in Busan will be an intellectual festival for all participants to make a journey of geological science together. We will do our best for the success of this festival. Thank you very much, and see you all again in 2024.
All the honorable delegates, 안녕하세요. Good morning and good afternoon to you. I am Pyongguri, the president of Korea Institute of Geoscience and Mineral Resources, KIGAM. I am really glad to give you a greeting remarks for today's ceremony. First of all, on behalf of KIGAM, it is my sincere regret to express that we were unable to meet in person at the 36th International Geological Congress in India 2020. I would like to express my heartfelt appreciation to IUGS and the IGC 2020 Organizing Committee of India for arranging today's ceremony. The World Economic Forum claimed the feature keyword as Great Reset, describing today's paradigm shift of grand transition. Ladies and gentlemen, the IGC 2024 will be the momentum proving the Great Reset in geoscience. And today, Trophy Award ceremony is the initiating great start of this momentum. Lastly, KIGAM will spare all effort to support the great success of the IGC 2024. I genuinely aspire that we can meet all together face to face and share each other's wonderful research achievement during the 37th IGC 2024. See you all in Busan. Thank you very much. 감사합니다.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, greetings from Busan Metropolitan City. I am Park Hyung-jun, Mayor of Busan, the host city of IGC 2024. I fully acknowledge India's dedicated efforts for the successful hosting of the 36th Congress. I also understand how disappointing it is to have this significant event on a virtual platform. It is unfortunate that I'm not being able to meet you in person this time. In 2024, IGC will unfold in Busan as a platform to share accomplishments of and visions for geology. In addition, Busan is making tireless efforts to host the 2030 World Expo, which will set a milestone for humanity's prosperity. The 2030 Busan World Expo will serve as another important platform to signal the future of geology. Taking this opportunity, I would like to kindly ask for your continued interest and support for the upcoming Congress. Over the next 2 years, the city of Busan will spare no effort to make the next IGC a magnificent success. I would like to invite all of you to Busan to build on the accomplishments of the 36th IGC and see for yourself the bright future of geology. I look forward to meeting you in Busan in 2024. Thank you.
Well, that was completing the honors of handing over the Presidential Cup to the next host country and for the event in 2024. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that almost brings us to the final segment of the inaugural ceremony, and that is to do with Thanksgiving. Making adequate preparations for an important event like this requires a lot of hard work, foresight, and above all, malleability to adapt to sudden changes which can happen anytime. Understandably, the efforts of all needs to be acknowledged for a befitting conclusion. May I now request Sri C.H. Venkateshwara Rao, Deputy Director General GSI, and also the Secretary General of 36 IGC, to kindly come forward and propose the vote of thanks.
Thank you. Respected dignitaries on the dais, ladies and gentlemen, and all the people who are witnessing this event virtual mode. Good afternoon, all of you. Now, on behalf of IGC Secretary General, I would like to extend our profound gratitude to Sri Prahalad Joshi, Honorable Minister, Ministry of Coal, Mines and Parliamentary Affairs, for kindly accepting our invitation for delivering a message which is encouraging entire 36 IGC event. I also profoundly thankful to Dr. Jitendra Singh, Honorable Union Minister, Independent Charge for Earth Sciences, for his support from the ministry side and his message for this inaugural occasion. We express sincere thanks to Sri Rao Sahab Patil Danve, Honorable Union Minister for State of Mines, Coal and Railways for his message on this wonderful event. I would also take this opportunity to extend our appreciation and gratefulness to Dev Sinha Chauhan, Honorable Union Minister for State for Communication, for kind cooperation and support in releasing the stamps in commemoration of this event, 36 IGC event. Now, the decision to conduct the Congress during March 2022 was due to the strong determination of Sri Alok Tandon, Secretary, Minister of Mines, Government of India. He was keenly monitoring and involved in planning and implementation of each stage of the event. We are indebted to you, sir, for your guidance in accomplishing this mission successfully. I take this opportunity to express our profound appreciation to Dr. M. Ravichandran, Secretary, Ministry of Earth Sciences. As a co-partner, he always guided entire IGC team in a right direction. That is the fruits we are seeing because of his constant support from the Minister of Earth Sciences and his team members who are here. I thank Professor John Luden, President IUGS, and his team for their support and encouragement and the faith reposed on India for conducting this IGC from the IUGS side. I express my sincere gratitude to Professor Chandrama Sinha, President INSA, and her team members who are associated with this IGC, coordinating with all foreign national for conducting this function very grandly. I thank Professor Banerjee Saab. I can say he is the man of the match. At this age, his energy levels are so high. Everyone should imbibe that energy levels. And the spirit, I have seen him, the spirit and passion for this conducting this IGC in a grand way. Every effort I am seeing, sir, and we are all indebted to you, sir, for making this program very grand success, sir. I profusely thank our Director General Sri R.S. Garkal Saab and President 36 IGC for his unconditional support to propel the IGC related activities. Only one word he said to me, Rao Saab, ab jo decision le liye, I will be with you. Sir, that one word, sir, that changed the entire scenario. That results, sir, we are seeing is because of that one word, sir. Thank you, sir. I am grateful to you once again. I would like to place on record gratitude to Dr. Ranjit Rath, CMD MECL, Chief Sponsor and former Secretary General 36 IGC, for the pain he has taken, for the pressure he handled, the postponement pressure he handled very nicely, where our Indian image stood very high because of the delicately he handled that one. And because of that one, sir, we are able to conduct this program very grand way, sir. I am very much thankful to you, sir. I thank Shahil Ahmad Sab, Economic Advisor, Minister of Mines, for constant monitoring and encouragement from Minister's side. I thank Sri Janardhan Prasad, HOD, SR, and Vice President 36 IGC, who is morally with us and encouraged so many registrations, taking personal interest. Thanks are due to Dr. Jayesh Bakshi, DDG Chair Finance, Sri Pradeep Singh, the Director Tech. He is a man who always monitors from the Minister of Mines side. Every small thing he carefully alerted us in advance so that we could not land in trouble. All the troubles are avoided because of his timely intervention. And sparing the officers, I thank LP Singh for all his cooperation from the Faridabad office and as well as Bakshi Saab from DGCO. I thank my team members, Sri Devashish Raut, Director Admin, who has taken a tremendous pain, burning late hours, sleeping late hours, and seeing always we'll be sleeping around 1:30, and we'll be seeing the mails at early morning 4 o'clock also. And Sri Bhagat Sab, Director Finance, and all 36 IGC team members and staff members from Pushpa Bhavan, and officials and MOES, INSA, DGCO, and the FICCI team, led by Saurav Pandey. Wonderful conducted. We are impressed by the way you did the program, and thanks are due to you and the entire team. I extend all my sincere thanks to all the registered participants, without whose support this event would not have been very grand success. Thank you all for making I-36 IGC a grand success. I once again thank management from Minister of Mines for giving me an opportunity to perform my duties. Thank you, sirs. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, sir, for kindly proposing the vote of thanks and for doing that so graciously as you did. Well, ladies and gentlemen, before I seek the permission of the chair to kindly complete the proceedings of the inaugural ceremony, would like to leave the scientific fraternity with a thought which is absolutely deep-read. It goes like this. It's time for all the sciences to adopt a geological respect for time because of its capacity to transfigure, destroy, renew, amplify, entwine, innovate, and exterminate. Fathoming deep time is arguably the second greatest contribution of geology to mankind. Just as the microscope and telescope extends our vision into realms of space, once too minuscule or too immense for us to see, geology provides us with a lens through which we can witness time in a way that transcends the limit of our human experiences. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for all the patience that you've shown being a part of this inaugural ceremony. And may we request you to kindly join us for tea and slight refreshments, which is being served outside the auditorium on the 3rd floor. But before that, we'll make way for our special dignitaries on the dais to leave the room first, followed by others. Thank you very much for being a part of this occasion. Time. Well, we immediately regroup for the next technical session, which will be immediately in about 10 minutes from now at the same place. It will all be featured on the big screen. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Since the first speaker is Professor John Lewden, I'll have to wait till he comes in.
He showed up just now.
Yeah, I'm here.
He's there.
John, so then can I start the proceedings, John?
Yeah, can you, how do we control the slides? Do you control them for us?
Yeah, you only have to, everybody has to tell next slide, please. Okay, and that will be done. Okay, friends, welcome to this panel discussion. I am Ashok Singhvi. We will be coordinating this discussion. And I thank both the IUGS and the International Geological Congress Committee for inviting us to hold this panel discussion on geosciences for the next decade, challenges in the society. And we have a very distinguished set of panelists to talk about various aspects of future challenges, geoethics, stratigraphy, earthquakes and tsunamis, art of geoscience communication, geological thinking, and looking at the past to present the future. So I think we'll have a feast of ideas being thrown to us and munch over. I'll take a few minutes to introduce the speakers very briefly, and those who want to know more about the speakers can go to the website, and if you click on the photograph of the speaker, you will be able to read his CV. The first speaker is Professor John Lewden, the President of the International Union of Geological Sciences and bicentennial research professor at the Heriot-Watt University. He has been the Chief Executive of the British Geological Survey, is a Fellow of the Royal Society of Edinburgh, the Geological Society of London, and is a member of the Academia Europa and a foreign member of the Russian Academy of Sciences. He was decorated by the Queen with the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, CBE, for his contribution to geosciences. He has authored about 275 papers with close to 10,000 citations. Our next speaker is Professor Özlem Adiaman Lopez. She works as the head of UNESCO's Natural Sciences sector and is responsible for its important IGCP and Geoparks program. She is a person of many talents, ranging from processing and interpretation of Earth observation data, structural geology and geochemistry of active tectonics and volcanic areas, exploration geology, geological hazards to science management. So she will bring us the perspective of UNESCO for the future of geosciences. Professor Frank Mugnet, who is still not joined, is currently the coordinator of the African Mineral Development Center, a specialized agency to implement Africa's mining vision. And he has played a key role in development of policies on mineral resource development through Africa, throughout Africa. And he says there are three areas that have been identified by them are the geological information systems for mining, mineral governance framework, and the private sector academia interaction. Professor Das is our next speaker, fourth speaker, and she'll speak about, she's the vice president of the South Asian Association of Women Geoscientists. She has 4 decades of experience in the areas of igneous petrology and industrial minerals and has worked extensively across the world, ranging from Japan to Bangladesh to Nepal to Australia to South Africa. She has authored 7 books, 130 publications, and supervised a DSc and 21 students. She also served as a vice chancellor of FM University in Orissa in India. Professor Graham Shields works at the University College London and is an expert in geochemistry, carbon cycle, Precambrian and Cambrian geology, and evolution of biosphere. He has extensively contributed to these areas using cerium and strontium isotopes and other geochemical proxies. He has authored over 180 papers with 11,500 citations. He is the chief editor of the Journal of Geological Society of London and has extensively contributed to the IUGS Commission on Stratigraphy. Professor Archana Bhattacharya is a specialist in ionospheric physics and is globally known for her work on space weather, ionospheric scintillations, and geomagnetic variations. Her works informed on the detrimental effect of several space weather events on the operation of satellite-based communications and the causes of distortion in the images of Earth using satellite-borne synthetic aperture radars. She was the director of the Indian Institute of Geomagnetism in Bombay and is currently a senior scientist at the Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay. Professor Harsh Gupta is one of the senior geoscientists of India and has worked extensively in seismology, geophysical exploration, and ocean sciences. He is currently the president of the Geological Society of India, and he served as the president of the IUGG and the vice president of IUGS, the only Indian to have all these honors. He is a member of Indian Atomic Energy Regulatory Board and was a member of National Disaster Management Authority. He recently edited a monumental encyclopedia of solid earth geophysics. This is the second edition came in 2021, and he has been a recipient of one of the highest civilian honors of India, the Padma Shri. Dr. Indrani Mukherjee is our ECR speaker from the University of Tasmania in Australia. She works in ancient marine environments, early earth evolution, and the origin of life using precision geochemical methods. Her work on a period from 1800 million years to 800 million years, termed as or known as the boring billion, has provided new insights and changed the conventional concepts. She has regularly contributed to public outreach, including Australian Broadcasting Corporation, radio and TV networks. And it's this aspect of outreach is she will talk about today. Professor Victor Baker, known to many in India, is Regents Professor in Geosciences at the University of Arizona and is known for his work in developing the area of paleohydrology, geology of Mars, history and philosophy of earth and planetary sciences. His work on ancient ocean ice sheets and the hydrological cycle on Mars has been, and many others have been benchmark papers. He was the president of the Geological Society of America and is an honorary fellow of the European Union of Geosciences and the Polish Academy of Sciences. He has authored 20 books, 450 papers, 600 short reports with about 26,000 citations. Professor Baker has contributed extensively to Indian geosciences by initiating, with his help, by helping initiate the paleohydrological studies in India. Professor R.J. Wasson is both from India and from Australia. So he works more in India than in Australia. He has worked at the ANU Canberra, CSIRO, and was a deputy vice chancellor at the Charles Darwin University, National University of Singapore, and presently is affiliated to Kebankasan University at Malaysia. He is known for his work on aeolian landscape and river catchments, and has made some fundamental contribution to identifying sediment sources using isotopes and geomorphology and understanding the human impact on them. He was one of the architects of the IGPP program. He has contributed to Indian geosciences through his work on the Thar Desert and on major Indian rivers. He has published over 300 papers with over 9,000 citations. Friends, it's my honor and privilege to initiate this panel discussion by inviting Professor John Ladon, the first speaker. The next slide, please.
Yeah, thanks very much indeed. It's a pleasure to be part of this group and try and share with you some ideas about geosciences, and in particular at the moment in these difficult times where it might be going. Next slide, please. So this slide here is taken from the Global Earthquake Model compilation, actually. But I think it's a slide that illustrates very well the challenges facing geosciences, and it clearly focuses on the Indian subcontinent. But I actually use this slide in many presentations, not just talking to the Indian community. Oh, could you go back? Yeah, and what it's all about, sort of why does geoscience matter, is understanding the dynamics of the Earth, creating a safe and healthy planet, and driving sustainable growth and reducing global inequities. And I think This is covered in general in the slide because you can see the influence of population, the influence of hazards, and the influence of climate change in general on the Bangladesh area. So it covers everything. Next slide. So what are the current drivers for geoscience? They are diversification of energy supplies and decarbonization, reducing global emissions, understanding the geological risk as well as the hazard, so with a focus on the risk, I would say, the global population change and migration, open and big data and information sciences, and in particular, I think tougher environmental regulations as we go forward, which is good, but we have to manage that, and greater public scrutiny. So, one question is, in this brief talk is should we or can we as geoscientists bring ourselves together to do some big science, and which has an enormous impact on the scale of, say astronomy. So, one of my pet projects here is actually to drill into a magma body and control the magma fluid system directly and measure the conditions in a magma that threatens a large city. I think we can do that in Iceland, and then use those models to understand places like Naples. We've never undertaken a fully researched hydrofrack. So understanding, and that's not just for shale gas exploration, it now underpins gas storage, it underpins hydrogen, it underpins groundwater, and it underpins geothermal. We will explore and inhabit the moon and Mars in the next little while. I think that'll pose new questions, and it'll pose a need for specialist scientists, say in petrology, that we haven't needed for a little while. So we need to think about that. We need to innovate with remote sensing and quantum sensors. We need to create a step change in environmental prediction. And I think we are more and more developing, and I think we'll see this in these talks, developing data systems which will enable humanity to achieve a new equilibrium with the Earth. Next slide. So, a couple of challenges here for the geosciences, and you may or may not like these. So we need, I think, to fix the disconnect between discovery science, applied science, and the translation of sciences in the geosciences. I think that there is a disconnect between doing the fundamental science and then translating that through into applications and solutions. We need to focus on solutions. Are we too focused on Earth's history rather than its current state and its future? Should we be solving environmental problems rather than simply identifying them? Clearly the answer is yes there. We should grasp some big Earth science projects, a couple of examples I gave you. We need to develop better links with socioeconomic research, and we cannot do climate change without understanding, or we cannot respond to climate change without linking the science, the engineering, the people, and finance with that. And we should be concerned about the decreasing enrollment and skill shortage in emerging geo-industries. Certainly in my part of the world, that's a major challenge. Next slide. So I think that's my talk, brief. It's a new decade for the IUGS. We have our 60th anniversary. Actually, it was last year, but we're running the events this year. We're shifting, or our focus is very largely on the global goals for sustainable development. And geoscience is, I think, at a kind of turning point, a cusp, where the drivers of the traditional geosciences are changing, and we need to find ways of dealing with that. Thank you.
Yes, madam.
Thank you very much.
Just 1 second. Hello, the next speaker is Professor Lopez.
Hi, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, all around the world. I'm Muslim. I'm trying to follow John's footsteps. I think our talks will be aligned. As Professor Ashok explained, I'm a structural geologist by background training, but my current remit last 5 years at UNESCO is to manage the international collaboration for international projects to enable geoscientists to work together. So today I will not talk about much geology, but I will talk how we do this and why we do this. Can we just press again, please? I think I have a text on the top, it's not coming. Yes, okay. No, can you go back? Okay, hi, thanks again. So So as I said, I will talk about what UNESCO does and why UNESCO does and how UNESCO does. I mean, as most of you know, UNESCO is United Nations Education, Science and Culture Organization. So when it was established 75 years ago, it was supposed to be UNESCO, and it was not supposed to be S in the middle. So initially it was designed to bring the peace to our world. After the Second World War, the terrible things we went through, UNESCO wanted to establish education and culture links so that we will not get into another world again. But in that point, scientists all around the world approached UNESCO and they said, you cannot have a peace without science. So that's the time UNESCO included S in the world, because UNESCO believes that the peace, to have a peace all around the world, we need to have a science and we need to have scientists. So how we do this? I think one of really excellent example is the picture you see me behind is the globe. The globe doesn't have borders. The globe doesn't have geographical borders because the globe is a geological map. So this is something we geologists, since it's started UNESCO, try to bring that we don't work with borders, we don't look about borders, we would like to bring science and geoscience to our world because we know that this will help us bring the peace. Next slide, please. So this is, I think I would like to follow up John's message. At UNESCO, we don't talk about I'm a structural geologist, tectonics, geology, plate tectonics. No, I'm asked by my management to respond these challenges. So we are looking after projects, we are supporting projects on earth sciences just to help the societies, just to support sustainable societies. And our real main objective is the education, because we still start from the background that education will bring the peace. So what we do here, as most of you know, our programs, we look after natural resources, their sustainable share and exploration and exploitation, but again, with the mind of peace and education. We work with the cultural communities, we try to connect culturally our globe, and we always collaborate with local indigenous knowledge, because most of us are geologists here, and we do know that when we go to field, they do know, our local indigenous communities know more than sometimes we us here studying their data back home. And priorities, as John explained, climate change and geological hazard, this is our society's need from us. And our projects at UNESCO focus on these topics. And one of the recent topics at UNESCO's agenda is geoconservation and geoheritage. Since the establishment of UNESCO Global Geoparks in our major agenda, we work very closely with UNESCO designated sites, which are UNESCO Global Geoparks. They're focusing on the scientific, geoscientific research and application for local communities on designated sites. So these objectives are all aligned with Sendai Framework, UN 2030 Agenda, and Paris 21 Climate Agreement. And our vision at UNESCO to support geosciences for society is, as I wrote on the bottom, efficient, safe, sustainable, and renewable natural resources, exploration and extraction, and to better understand, predict, mitigate climate change and geohazards. So the vision we have is not fundamental science. The vision UNESCO has is not the applied science, but when we call for projects, when we call for proposals, these are the topics we are looking. We work very close with national commissions. In each country, we have a big community of national commissions, and they support us with their national involvements. Next slide, please. So UN 2030 agenda, we have 17 objectives and we don't have much left. So we are in 2022. So in 8 years, all our governments agreed to deliver these objectives. So what we have done is, I'm not going to go into detail. If you go to our website, I tried for last years of UNESCO finding examples of projects which contributed especially SDGs. So what I do at UNESCO is when I talked about tectonics or stratigraphy, my audience don't understand me because they are not all geologists. It's not the community. So I need to translate them how this scientific research will resolve no poverty, how it will bring no hunger. So this is the link I think geoscientific community constantly need to do, Because as scientists, we are curious, we would like to know and understand the Earth processes, Earth systems. What the communication we do with this non-geoscientific communities, they would like to know these topics, how you are going to bring me energy, how you are going to bring me technologies for climate change. So if you have a time, please go to our websites. We have excellent stories from background, from last 50 years of our programs contributing these SDGs. Next one, please. So again, one of the really most critical point, which we saw last 2 years with this horrible pandemic, is the facts and the truth and the science with peer review. So what UNESCO does is that at all scientific programs, and mainly I think International Geoscience Program for 50 years, we have a very strong peer review. So the projects and the data and the research is peer reviewed by high number of global international experts. So as you can see on the screen, I have experts from all around the world, because sometimes a problem we see, let's say in India, is not relevant in Latin America, and they do bring their vision and their perspective. So I think we all know as scientists, but it last 2 years with this fake news and with all the issues we saw, the peer review is excellent, important process for us. And we at UNESCO, we renew our board, our experts every 2 years to bring fresh blood and fresh background to keep our peer review for the sustainable development. Next slide, please. So again, what we do, as I said today, I will just talk about SDGs. One of my main objective of SDGs, SDG 17. So it's partnerships for the goals. We need to bring all around the world together. If we are not together, we are not going to be successful. So this is the map of world showing all IGC project leaders. And on the bottom, this is the new graph I've done recently, thanks to IGS Secretariat, is showing each project led by leaders from different regions of the world. As you see, the graph is very colorful. It shows that it's most of the regions getting together to resolve our problems for the Anthropocene, or finding new energy resources, or finding solutions for geohazards. So this is what UNESCO's mandate, bringing communities, scientists together and work together. Next one, please. And this is, I think, my favorite and my remit at UNESCO. I am UNESCO's gender focal point, because I am the only woman geologist at UNESCO, which is a title I don't like, because sometimes it's good to be only one, but in this perspective, I think it's not good. So what we have done with our projects is our projects are 40% led by female scientists. So in our selection criteria, our experts look at the scientific content of project, but some projects are not approved if they are not collaborating with scientists, because female women scientists exist. There are geologists around it. It's just a matter of finding them and collaborating them. Then UNESCO has a very strong emphasis on gender equality, and our geoscience program, knowing that geosciences or geology are male-oriented domain, so we strongly emphasize, and we are very proud of our achievements on SDG 5. Next one, please. Of course, UNESCO's backbone is education. So quality education is our mandate, and this is a graph showing our projects and their activities, their training activities, their field trips, their educational activities, bringing more than 5,000 people last year together. So these more than 5,000 people, more than 120 countries connected each other within UNESCO umbrella, within IGCP umbrella, and they exchanged. It could be virtual, it could be webinars, it could be field trips, but they learned from UNESCO. They learned about geology, geosciences. They could be in Australia, but they probably learned from Africa. We brought people together to learn together. So this is one of the real areas we are proud, because we are our outreach 126 countries. Next one, please. And this is all stats together. So this is recently published at UNESCO website. As you can see, our priorities, gender equality. Our priority is Africa, because we need Africa. I think the distinguished speaker after me, he will focus on this topic. UNESCO's #1 priority is Africa. And as you can see from this graph, last 5 years, from 15 project leaders to nearly 60 project leaders from 8 countries to 30 countries are working in IGCP projects, and we are bringing Africa to our projects, which we are really proud. So we are working really hard to connect the world together, because we would like to bring the geoscience to build the pieces in our committees. Next slide, please. That's all from me. In a nutshell, I really wanted to show how UNESCO would like to bring the peace with geosciences, with education, with SDG 17.6 and gender equality. I hope it was clear, and I will wait for the further questions. Thank you.
Professor Frank Mugnay is still traveling from the airport to his office. So we will bring him at the end of the session. He just got a message. So can I go to Dr. Madhubita Das, the next speaker? Yes. May I request Professor Madhubita Das to present her ideas? Professor Das, you may have to unmute yourself.
Okay. Is it audible now?
Yes, very good.
Okay. Namaskar to all of you. At the outset, I must express my grateful thanks to the organizing committee of IGC for giving me this wonderful opportunity to meet all the veterans in geosciences. I would like to quote ecologist Aldo Leopold, who says, ethical behavior is doing the right thing when no one else is watching, even when doing the wrong thing is legal. Many times people ask, can mining be done ethically? And my answer is yes, provided it is done ethically and responsibly. As per the UN report, 3 billion additional people will move to cities by 2050. This swelling population will place extra demand both on mineral and energy resources. So we need to adopt mining in ethical manner. Now coming to a little bit on the history of geoethics. Geoethics is comparatively a new branch, and it lies at the meeting point of philosophy, geosciences, and sociology. This concept was developed by Italian philosophers, and later on it got the support from geologists across the globe. Since 1996, regular symposia on geoethics are being organized at the International Geological Congresses, and a milestone in this regard was the foundation of the International Association for Promoting Geoethics, the IAPG, in 2012, and it is an affiliated organization of the IUGS. Geoethics in mining means responsible mining, and responsible mining relates to changes in global mining practices and norms that have recently come to the force. I would give few suggestions for responsible mining, and these are all ethical practices, and I think it is to be taken up by the IUGS. The first one is access to clean water for the community should be the first priority by the mining companies. Next is making mining much more transparent. As we know, most mining operations take place in very remote places. Before the internet age, mining companies could operate with relative impunity. Presently, mining companies are operating responsibly or are on a track to improving their operations. They give employers, advocacy groups, indigenous people, investors, and other stakeholders a window into mining operations through webcams and ensure that mineral development agreements and CSR performances are accessible to all the stakeholders. Coming to the existing guidelines, we all agree that mining has a social purpose and it is done to transform lives. They are directly responsible for the well-being of indigenous people, often in the absence of local government policies and programs. Existing voluntary guidelines related to the corporate social responsibility are the GRI, that is the Global Reporting Initiative, and ISO 26000. But these guidelines are unable to give a qualitative outcome in certain sectors like education, health, environment, and local culture. So there is a need to modify the existing voluntary guidelines. Deep sea mining is a subfield of experimental seabed mining that involves the retrieval of minerals and deposits from the ocean floor found at a depth of 200 meters, or sometimes it may be a greater depth. There is a growing debate about whether deep sea mining should be allowed or not because of the potential for damage to deep sea ecosystems and pollution. So deep sea mining deserves to be carefully discussed and must have separate guidelines. Coming to artisanal and small-scale mining, artisanal and small-scale mining provide a livelihood to 40.5 million men, women, and children from 80 countries in the global south, that is Asia, Africa, and South America. They use primitive methods and often cause severe environmental damage and pose huge risk to health, particularly if they are using mercury, cadmium, and other toxic elements. So my suggestion would be large mining operations should handhold artisanal and small-scale mining by providing training, access to technology, and enhancing the overall governance of raw materials. Mining should aim to recover all valuable metals and minimize waste, and consider waste as a potential secondary resource, because we know that a waste is a waste if we waste it. So present day mining should be zero waste mining. Mining companies should pay compensation to the project affected people right from the day a mining lease is allocated. Not that they will wait for the day they will get the revenue or the profit and then they will do the compensation for the indigenous people. Mining companies do improve infrastructure facilities in the surrounding, but they must take utmost care in minimizing the spread of diseases within their workforce by adhering occupational health. It's 4 o'clock. Geoethics be introduced in the geoscience curriculum starting from secondary school to post-graduation or university level. Students must be aware of the ethical dilemmas and trained to develop the strategies and skills required for responsible mining, because today's children are the future geoscientists. To conclude, mining is essential for economic development of any nation, and the purpose is to benefit the society, not to destroy. Even Einstein also regretted that he never anticipated his E is equal to mc square would lead to invention of atom bomb. I would make an appeal to the entire geoscientific community to promote responsible mining, fulfilling all the objectives. Let us leave a legacy as the protector of the environment, not the polluter or destroyer of the environment. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much for very clear message. Professor Graham Shields now. You have to unmute yourself, Professor Graham Shields.
I think I have now.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk about stratigraphy, one of the oldest sciences. Not far from London, where I live and work, the landscape is pitted by holes cut into the chalk to reach the flint deposits deep underground. Archaeological, sorry, we're moving to the slide. Can we get to the first slide, please? Just a second.
Please change the slide when it is set. Next slide, please. Hello, Graham?
Okay. Archaeological studies have shown that around 4,500 years ago, miners began to predict where the best tool-making black flint could be found beneath the surface. Here, as elsewhere in the world, humans then invented the science of tracing sedimentary layers, or as we call it, stratigraphy, to serve society. Thousands of years later, surveyors such as Leonardo da Vinci, yes, he of the painting fame, would follow in their footsteps. William Smith, another surveyor, often called the father of stratigraphy, pioneered the use of fossils to trace both time and strata. Initially greeted with skepticism, biostratigraphy was destined to become the prime means by which rocks would be correlated around the world. The dominance of Smith's biostratigraphy only began to be challenged in the 1950s when geochemical and geophysical analyses became more routine. Modern geochronology and chemostratigraphy permit not only more highly resolved time series, but also the hitherto inconceivable precision achieved by tuning sedimentary rhythms to orbital cycles. Next slide, please. So all these advances have made the International Chronostratigraphic Chart what it is today. It is a massively underappreciated, but nonetheless amazing achievement that is one of the earliest products of truly global scientific collaboration. Ever-improving stratigraphic resolution is, of course, the future, but the cutting edge of chronostratigraphy, in my opinion, lies elsewhere. Because fossils are lacking from the most ancient rock series, Precambrian stratigraphy has lagged far behind, to the extent that most of the International Chronostratigraphic Chart is not actually chronostratigraphic at all. Most of Earth history is still defined using round numbers that can neither be placed in a rock series nor correlated around the world. And yet hidden within those cryptic early chapters lies the origin of life, of biological complexity, and of animals, the onset of the first mountain building, supercontinents, plate tectonics, snowball Earths, the rise of oxygen, to say nothing of vast metallic and non-metallic mineral resources all around the world. However, only the Ediacaran and Cryogenian periods are currently defined by stratigraphic events, and progress towards subdividing the remaining 85% has been really slow. Following a proposal in 2012 in the middle of this figure I'm showing you, what I show here on the right is the latest attempt to achieve this by an ICS working group comprising 35 members from 12 different countries. It introduces globally relevant definitions for Precambrian periods and even new names such as the Scaurian to recall the rusting of Earth's crust during the Great Oxidation event. Once such a chronostratigraphic scheme is agreed, we will finally have a truly international chronostratigraphic chart for the first time. Next slide, please. An increasingly precise geological record is a worthy goal for the future that will benefit both scientists and public alike. But managing increasing amounts and types of data comes with a headache, particularly when a lot of that data involves subjective judgments. The old adage, rubbish in, rubbish out, comes to mind. And as a consequence, the future of stratigraphy lies in the construction of user-defined interactive relational databases that include opinion data as well as metadata, and they need to be findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. Those are the FAIR principles of databases. The section-based approach of databases such as the GBDB or One Stratigraphy is therefore of crucial importance, not only to global correlation, but also to answering major scientific questions around biological evolution and Earth history. Next slide, please. Next slide. So geological sections and their time series are snapshots in space. Samples are snapshots in time. So such one-dimensional and 2D records, no matter how well resolved, limit our ability to make step changes in understanding. Quantification of material transfer requires 3D and even 4D appreciation of Earth's exogenic system. One major future challenge is how to encourage the harmonizing of databases with each other and together with digital maps, paleogeographic reconstructions, and Earth system modeling to test evolutionary hypotheses of our planet. Future advances await globally coordinated efforts to target the major science questions of our age. Final slide, please. So what then is the foreseeable future of stratigraphy? Well, firstly, I look forward to a truly chronostratigraphic chart for all time that can act as both a universal scientific language and also an intuitive aid towards greater understanding of our shared geological heritage. Secondly, the integration of bio, chemo, and other forms of stratigraphic data sets will inform new reconstructions of the co-evolution of life and the planet. And finally, the harmonizing of high-resolution time series with other forms of deep time data will lead to a step change in our understanding of how the Earth system works. Future data sets and opinion-based outputs need to be findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable, but it needs to be obey those fair principles by everyone and for everyone, which also means that the geosciences need to be representative, inclusive, and diverse. Some international bodies are anything but representative, with decisions made by a limited group of senior scientists from a relatively small number of countries. And this despite the fact that geological terrains and stratigraphic correlation recognize no political boundaries. Women are still underrepresented in the geosciences, especially in positions of seniority and visibility, while stubborn resistance against changing the status quo is an all too familiar story, despite well-intended top-down resolutions. So alongside my 3 scientific recommendations, I would also ask the IUGS to consider new measures to ensure that multinational geoscience and all geoscientists are represented at the lowest levels, from working groups to subcommissions, so that diversity can filter through to the highest echelons. The future legitimacy of its geological timescale and greater public understanding of Earth history depends on it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You have been just precise on the time. Professor Archana Bhattacharya, are you able to connect? Just please hold on. Is Professor Archana Bhattacharya able to connect? She had some problems with the system. I do not know. I will have no choice but to move on and come back to her. So may I now request Professor Gupta, Harsh Gupta, to make his presentation. My apologies for jumping around, but people are not able to make connections here. So.
Thanks, Dr. Ashok. My compliments to you for putting everything together in the last moment. And can I have the first slide, please? Next.
Next slide, please. Yes.
Next. So I'm going to talk about setting up of Indian Ocean tsunami warning system. And John Ludden mentioned about bigger science projects, and I also listened to Madam Lopez, and she said the importance of natural hazards was on the top, and the projects were given for many. So now in the 21st century, we are in the 22nd year of 21st century, and in the last 21 years, the earthquakes and resultant tsunamis have claimed more human lives than the entire 20th century. This is in spite of all the scientific and technological developments, and somehow we are not able to reach the masses of where the change should be. So in 2004, on 26th of December, we had this massive MW 9.2 Sumatra earthquake, which generated a tsunami, and that claimed more than 250,000 lives in South and Southeast Asia. Now, if you look globally, here are the earthquakes all over the world, and here is the Circum-Pacific Belt, which accounts for almost 75% of earthquake energy release. And then we have got the Alpine Himalayan Belt for another 20%, another 5% goes in the small scale earthquakes, the intraplate earthquakes. One thing which we found that as far as the Indian Ocean is concerned, there are only 2 spots, Java, Sumatra to Andaman Nicobar Island, a stretch of 4,000 kilometers, and an area of in the northern part of the Arabian Sea, which can host tsunami-genic earthquakes. This is a very important issue. Unlike the Circum-Pacific Belt, where all around the belt you can have a tsunami-genic earthquake, when it comes to the Indian Ocean, these are the only 2 spots which can host a tsunami-genic earthquake. Next slide, please. So after the occurrence of this earthquake and the resultant tsunami, which claimed almost 250,000 plus lives, there were discussions, and there was a first meeting took place in the end of March in Paris, Intergovernmental Commission of Oceanography, and there was a lot of discussion on what should be done for the Indian Ocean. by that time, I had become very conscious that we cannot afford to have false alarms. Because if you give a false alarm of if an advisory is given to evacuate, it happened soon after the 26th December earthquake. There were such advisories and millions of people moved away from the coastal areas and there was no tsunami there. So it becomes very important to make sure that we give appropriate advisories. And for that, it becomes important that we are able to place ocean bottom pressure recorders, which are in the immediate vicinity of tsunami-genic zones. Now, this is not possible for the Pacific because you have got the entire Pacific belt producing such earthquakes. But it was true for the Indian Ocean, and this is what I was making a point in the Intergovernmental Commission on Oceanography end of March. And people would not agree to it immediately. So some 15 days time was taken, and finally we met again from 14 to 16 April 2005 in Mauritius. And the Mauritian Declaration said, recognize the unique tectonic plate structure of the Indian Ocean, and that there are primarily two tsunami-genic sources that could affect the coastline of Indian Ocean, namely the Indonesian seismic zone and its extension about 4,000 km length, and the Makran source. So this was, once this was accepted, then we designed our own tsunami system. Next slide, please. Next slide. And in that system, yeah, next slide. They are the major component. First component is the risk assessment. In risk assessment, the historical earthquakes, the paleo tsunamis, the tsunami travel time, etc., are all taken into care. And then we have generated a lot of scenarios for the occurrence of an earthquake of magnitude 7 and larger, because there's no time to compute. And detection, warning, and dissemination is the next step. We use the seismic networks, the BPR, that is bottom pressure recorder network, the tide gauges, and we use communication, VSAT, INSAT, GPS, and IMERSAT. And finally, these advisories are provided all over. Now, this was done, and one of the major aspects of all this was the pressure records, the bottom pressure recorders, which were placed in the immediate vicinity of the two tsunami-genic zones. So what happens after the earthquake occurs, we get to know occurrence of earthquake within a minute or so. But whether it has generated a tsunami or not is not known unless until it reaches a place where there is a recording. Now, when we plant these ocean bottom pressure recorders in the immediate vicinity of these two tsunami-genic zones, so soon after occurrence of the earthquake, if there's an oscillation of the entire ocean, then these bottom pressure recorders give us a signal, and we are able to monitor it and give a tsunami advisory. Next slide, please. So what I must say that India took up a very major challenge to set up a tsunami warning system for the Indian Ocean, and it took just 30 months time to do it. We started in 2004, and we were done by August of 2007. And the 12th September 2007 earthquake was the first earthquake of which the advisories were issued. And over the last 15 years, the system has worked very efficiently, and there has been no wrong advisories. And it is now considered among the best systems of tsunami warning, and it helps the entire Indian Ocean rim countries. Indian Ocean rim countries are basically divided into two categories. The ones which are in the immediate vicinity of the earthquake sources, so they can contribute to generate the tsunami advisory. The other are which are far away from these sources, and these countries have to prepare themselves that once the advisory is given to them, how to react to it. So these are very important issues, and we have continuous courses for upgrading the skill and tell how and what should be done. I must compliment the Ministry of Earth Sciences, the Department of Ocean Development, who took up this program in 2004, and with the support of scientists from other departments, it has been achieved. Thanks a lot. I'm done.
Can I check if Dr. Bhattacharya is able to?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, I'm speaking through my mobile phone now.
Yes, very good, very good. I think you should work on phone only. Now it's your time, madam. Your time,
okay.
Please start.
First of all, thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak here. Modern society is heavily dependent on a variety of technologies which are vulnerable to precipitous changes in the dynamic electromagnetic environment of the Earth. The field of geomagnetism is concerned with the study of Earth's electromagnetic environment created by the main geomagnetic field, which has its origin in Earth's fluid outer core, and the interaction of this magnetic field with the charged particles or plasma which flow out from the sun, and the heliospheric magnetic field carried by this plasma. As such, geomagnetism is in a position to provide a service to geosciences by quantifying the changes in Earth's electromagnetic environment which occur on various spatial and temporal scales. The main magnetic field, as you will see in the second figure, is very different from a simple dipole. This field also changes with time. Typically, a new updated version of the world magnetic model based on satellite observations of the geomagnetic field is released every 5 years. This magnetic model is used in navigation for military applications, commercial airlines, search and rescue operations, etc. Now, you can see from the slide that the magnetic field strength at Earth's surface for the year 2020, which is based on data collected by European Space Agency's Swarm satellite mission, that there is an anomaly in the magnetic field which covers much of Southern Atlantic Ocean, South America, and parts of South Africa. Here, the magnetic field strength drops off very rapidly and in fact is the lowest in the globe. This is referred to as the South Atlantic Anomaly region. And as it happens, the sun also has a dynamo-generated complex magnetic field, which follows a cycle of approximately 22 years. During the course of an approximately 11-year solar cycle, the magnetic activity of the sun causes magnetic energy to be built up in the solar atmosphere. And when this is suddenly released, a solar flare occurs accompanied by emission of electromagnetic radiation and highly energized charged particles. Then there are the coronal mass ejections, where billions of tons of material, basically charged particles or plasma, is ejected from the corona of the sun. Sometimes the CMEs are directed towards the Earth, and then under the right conditions, they cause geomagnetic storms. These charged particles are also accelerated while the CME, the coronal mass ejecta, travel from the sun to the outer reaches of Earth's magnetosphere. And there they are captured by the Earth's magnetic field, and they reside in two donut-shaped regions called Van Allen radiation belts. So here in the magnetosphere, also these particles are further energized. So there are these very highly energetic particles residing in the radiation belts. The inner radiation belt normally starts out about 1,000-kilometer altitude, extends to 6,000 kilometers, but over the South Atlantic Anomaly region, the inner belt dips down to about 200 kilometers altitude. So you can imagine that the satellites which pass through this region get bombarded by all these highly energetic particles. Now, most of the Earth observation satellites are in low Earth orbits. For instance, swarm satellites are at an altitude between 450 and 500 kilometers. So such satellites, while traveling, get bombarded, and what happens is these highly charged particles, highly energetic charged particles, they can have a significant effect on a computer memory or a digital processor, on board the satellites. This plays havoc with the satellite systems and cause all kinds of problems with the data, sometimes leading to total failure of the satellites and so on. So while passing over the South Atlantic anomaly, satellites have to take some precautionary measures. Now, from 1970 to 2020, minimum field strength in the South Atlantic anomaly region has dropped from 24,000 nanoteslas to 22,000 nanoteslas. Area of the anomaly has grown and moved westward at about 1 degree in 5 years. So in 5 years, the projections are that this anomaly region is going to grow further and even bifurcate. In fact, you can see at the surface of the Earth, there is a new region of minimum, which has appeared over the last decade and is developing vigorously in recent years. And this will become visible at satellite heights as it grows in size. So, it is very important to understand the origin and the future evolution of the South Atlantic anomaly. The question to ask is there a relationship between the South Atlantic anomaly and non-uniform mantle heat flux? I think those who are working on the geodynamo are working in these areas, but such localized mantle heat flux, they may not have introduced into their models as yet. Now, another recent feature is that the Earth's northern magnetic pole has been moving very quickly away from the Canadian Arctic towards Siberia. The movement has been very rapid since mid-1990s compared to the earlier times. This movement has forced the scientists of National Center for Environmental Information in the US to update the world magnetic model mid-cycle. Instead of 5 years, they couldn't wait till the completion of the 5 years. Now, because smartphone and consumer electronics companies also rely on these magnetic models to provide consumers with accurate compass apps, maps, and GPS services. There are also V-shaped changes in the rate of change of the geomagnetic field components. These are called geomagnetic jerks, and these rapid changes in the characteristics of the geomagnetic field are currently subjects of active research. And maybe in the coming decade, some new results will emerge because it's very difficult to introduce very localized features in the geodynamo models of today.
Madam, can you conclude, madam?
Yeah. So geomagnetic storms give rise to rapidly varying enhanced currents in the auroral ionosphere, and the rapidly varying magnetic fields due to these currents give rise to induced magnetic and electric fields in the Earth's lithosphere and mantle. And these geomagnetically induced currents, of course, can flow in grounded conducting networks such as power grids and pipelines during geomagnetic storms. So these also need to be modeled. A major magnetic storm in 1989 called GICs that knocked out Quebec's electrical power grid for about 8 hours and caused problems at various sites in the US, particularly in regions situated on igneous rocks, because these are regions of low conductivity, so that currents tend to flow into nearby wires. So if there is the strongest geomagnetic storm ever recorded happened in September 1859, when auroras were observed at as low a latitude as Cuba. If such a storm were to occur today, it would just do immense damage, and it could cost $2 trillion, according to some estimates. So the thing is, is there a finite chance of such a superstorm occurring? Well, on 23rd July 2012, there was a near miss because a powerful CME tore through Earth's orbit, but the Earth was there 1 week before. It was not there at the time. So keeping this in mind, many countries are sort of trying to look at the risks posed by GICs when major magnetic storms occur. And even low latitude countries like Brazil, but some countries like India are yet to take any steps in this direction. These models require 3D electrical conductivity models within the Earth, and those can be obtained from magnetometric observations at a large number of sites in the region. These again measure induced magnetic fields and electric fields, and since the conductivity depends on many characteristics of the interior of the Earth, they have wide-ranging applications. Groundwater, surface, geothermal energy, oil and gas, mining, tectonics, monitoring of volcanoes and all. So geomagnetism has a lot of things that it should be working on in the next decade. And these are some of the things which are connected with the interior of the Earth. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We'll now move on to Dr. Indrani Mukherjee. She is our ECR colleague. She'll bring all the energy that we need.
Well, I really hope to bring some energy to the discussion. Good evening, everyone. In fact, it's almost my bedtime here, but yeah, the onus is on me to bring the energy back, so I will. I'm very privileged to be talking to you from Lutruwita, Tasmania, the land of the Muwinina people, one of the oldest continuing cultures in the world. And I'd like to thank the organizing committee to give me an opportunity to share my views today as part of the 36th International Geological Congress. It's such a shame that we can't be in person, but oh well, that's the nature of it. So given the broad theme of this session, which is to do with challenges that we as the geoscientific community, as well as society in general, are to face, I think I chose to speak on the importance of geoscience communication because I believe it's got a huge role to play in the next 10 years. In my view, I think of all the challenges that we are to face in the next 10 years, the two most pressing are climate change and lack of gender diversity. The latter actually makes dealing with climate change even more difficult. And so I wanted to highlight the importance of effective geoscientific communication in society. So next slide. Yep, no, this is fine. We've seen just a slide before, please. We've seen this slide before. Now you will have prepared your own versions of this. You will have used it for your public outreach, university open days. I use it for first year students and outreach all the time. I even have a little pun down there for someone to have a good laugh. Some of you are probably rolling your eyes right now, but we've got to move beyond this. I think it was made pretty clear in a previous presentation of how important mining is. But there are some serious inaccurate perceptions of geology. People think geology is all about mining. Quite often when I do outreach or teach my students, they think of geology as this subject where it's all about mining and taking resources out of the earth and destroying it, etc., etc. But geology is more than that. And we know to deal with climate change, geoscience has a huge role to play. But I'm worried that that's not being communicated to the wider society as much. And I say that because, next slide, please. I come across articles like this. Geologists get called the dirty polluters. Times of India article states geology as a boring, old-fashioned subject. There was an article on Nature Reviews, Earth and Environmental Sciences, where there was a mention of how geoscience is on the chopping block. I know for a fact in Australia that a lot of the universities are culling geology departments. So clearly, how we perceive our subject is very different to how it is perceived outside the geoscientific community. And by that, I mean the broader scientific community, our stakeholders, funding bodies, school children, and wider public. And I think effective geoscientific communication can solve that discord. We do high-level scientific research in a laboratory. Now, to convert that high-level information into something that can be easily understood by non-geologists is, in my opinion, an art. And I think we really need to get the message out as soon as possible to garner support from our stakeholders as well as the wider public for more geoscience. Because we know, and I think John mentioned it in his presentation as well as Graham, that there's decreasing enrollments in geology. So if we are to tackle climate change, you need geoscientists, but we also need to train and actually be able to recruit geoscientists for the next 10 years. But if we don't have enough students taking up geology, then I think we've got a serious problem here. So next slide, please. And also this neat diagram that I sourced from the Scripps Institute of Oceanography website. I think this could be a good model for geoscientific communication as well. And it gives you some idea about how the information from a laboratory or your research group, how it travels through the various spheres of society that is outside the geoscientific society. It goes into the broader scientific community, then industry, government, and then of course the wider public. One thing we need to keep in mind is that we have been in this profession. We understand how Earth system processes work, but it's very unreasonable to assume or demand same sort of interest by the wider public or someone who hasn't undertaken a geology course. So there need to be a considered effort from our side, every geoscientist. It's not up to a handful of people who are just doing outreach on university open days. I think every geoscientist should look into their research and see how the research content may be relevant to the society. And then the onus is on us to convey that message from something being very high level scientific information and articulate it and tailor it. So the information that you want to share with the broader scientific community will be very different to the one that you're sharing with the wider public. So it's got to be tailored to get a maximum effect out of our communication skills. Next slide, please. The other thing which is really concerning, and I as a woman feel very strongly about it, is the lack of gender equality in geoscience and in science in general. Now, I've got the data here for India, Australia, and the United States, but I'm pretty sure that the data from other nations mimic what I'm showing you here. I feel very strongly about it because as a woman, but I should acknowledge that gender is beyond the binary division of a man and a woman. And I acknowledge that unfortunately, we haven't got the data for other minorities. And that's something we should look into as well. But from what we've got here, it's pretty obvious to me, and it's very concerning that we have lack of women representation in the upper echelons of the academic framework. And that's not okay. And this may be true for other minorities as well. It's a shame because, women comprise or account 50% of the population. If you exclude women or other minorities, it's the same result. You're also excluding the diversity of ideas. And when we don't have a diverse research group, it's not going to be productive. We're going to need innovative outcomes in the next 10 decades, not just to deal with climate change, but for very other societal challenges. But it can't just be a one-sided monotonous thing. And we all know that geoscience is very male-dominated. And I think we need to be able to use geoscientific communication to convey the issues relating to gender inequality to people in management positions and leadership positions. And then we need to be able to make those reforms and then communicate that to young girls. Because remember, we want the next generation of geoscientists. Now, if you can't convince a young girl that they can have an excellent career like their male counterparts, then I'm afraid that we're going to lose our appeal to a significant population and potential cohort, essentially. And so we really need to work on gender diversity. I know there was a presentation earlier on where UNESCO has taken a wonderful initiative where 40%, I think Ms. Lopez said, that 40% of the projects had female leaders. Well, that's fantastic. And, I don't mind patting us on the back every now and then, but let's not get too comfortable. I think we've got to do a lot more. Next slide, please.
Can you conclude, please?
Yep, that's my next slide. Yes, and the next, just a few clicks.
Can you
Few
click
more
once?
clicks, please? And another one. Yep, no, just previous. Yeah, so I just wanted to conclude by saying geoscientific communication, and an effective one, has indeed got a huge role to play in terms of how we deal with challenges in the future. And in terms of IGS recommendations, I was going to suggest that, look, there's nothing wrong with our conventional way of running conferences, but maybe we can think about more public engagement at our conferences. We need to tailor our workshops. We're very good at sharing information that we're doing brilliant research work amongst us, but I think it's time for us to communicate that to the wider public and our funding bodies, to let everyone know what geologists are capable of and how we are capable of solving societal challenges in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, our next speaker is Victor Baker, and he's going to make a history of sorts by giving a formal seminar at 2 o'clock in the morning. So over to you, Victor Baker.
This talk concerns the most important contribution that the earth sciences that can make to habitability of our planet, Earth. Next slide, please. Next slide, please.
Next slide, please.
Habitability concerns both as the concerns of habitability are both aesthetic and moral. It is about the goodness of the place we humans live and love, Earth. Achieving habitability requires geological thinking, and that combines geo, which comes from the ancient Greek Gaia, the divine mother goddess of all. Geology is female to the core. The logical part comes from the Greek logos, which is the sacred link between reason and the earth's rational structure. Logos is also for word. It is the word revealed by earth to her inhabitants through this thinking. What is this thinking? It is the natural flow of earth signs, rocks, strata, structures, rivers, mountains, turbidity currents, floods, tsunami, etc. These generate geological interpretations. I am not talking here about cold, detached knowledge, facts, or theories. Geothinking is continuous, live, and connected, involving the continuity of thought between Earth and her human investigators. Geological thinking must focus on attitudes taken by Earth scientists in their quest for understanding, using 1, logical thinking, 2, the desire to do good, ethics, and 3, their own feelings about Earth, their aesthetic sense. Not doing this is the same as not being scientific in the most important and humanly appropriate sense of that activity. Next slide, please. This geological thinking is ultimately most important for what Earth says to all of us through her natural language of rocks, rivers, sediments, and other signs of causal phenomena. This kind of thinking, relating thoughts to things, involves interpretations and translation of Earth signs that show rather than tell the absolute truth that Earth presents to us all. We desperately need this kind of thinking to reveal Earth's messages to all humankind. This kind of thinking will produce a transformation of attitudes that will be especially relevant because of the cataclysmic events and associated disasters that currently threaten Earth's habitability. Right now is the critical moment, the crucial moment for all geoscientists. The cited paper by climate scientists, The Tragedy of Climate Change Science, basically says the climate society contract is broken. It isn't working. Solutions are not coming about. I emphasize the politics and policy are broken, not the science. Corrective action is urgently needed to overcome major impediments, whether economic, political, or cultural. We, Earth scientists, have a moral imperative to convey directly Earth's message to her inhabitants. Next slide, please. So the call for a sustainable future must come from Earth herself. Geological thinking is how we convey Earth's messages. Simply stated, Earth does not tell lies. Earth's messages are always true, never false. Earth's authority is absolute. We, Earth's inhabitants, ignore her message at our peril. Our challenge as Earth scientists is to convey this age-old truth, translating from Earth's language into our own. The resulting communication challenge will be aided by the inherent common sense and primordial instincts of all humankind. Whether viewed as divine creation or the product of physical laws, Earth's future needs to be shown, not told, in terms of what has happened and what can happen again. Earth's past is real happenings. Earth's future is real possibilities. Overemphasis on the present obscures Earth's messages. The abundance of Earth's past is a continuity to the future, with all the power that comes from a foundation of reality derived from all that has already occurred. The signs of increasing extremes are pointing toward a pressing need for action. It is the absolute credibility of Earth herself that will compose humankind to take the necessary action. We are Earth, and Earth is us. Let Earth speak. So, final slide. I will close with 3 action items. Only one got listed. First, it should be the role of IUGS to promote this kind of geological thinking, to communicate Earth's messages to her inhabitants, to educate as to how Earth's truths get revealed. The second one, Earth's extremes are lessons. Each disaster, flood, heat wave, typhoon, tsunami, etc., needs to be highlighted as such, not by the individual scientist giving a news report, but by the entire geothinking Earth science community through the IUGS and other organizations. Third, and finally, any argument that the IUGS or other organization should not do this must be presented and defended in open discussion. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and thank you to our hosts here in India for putting together this conference under difficult circumstances.
Thank you. Thank you, Victor, for a very thought-provoking message. May I request Professor Bob Watson to?
Okay, first slide, please, Ashok. Thank you very much. This leads on from Vic's very inspirational talk and also relates to Indrani's observations from the southern parts from the subantarctic parts of Australia. I believe that the moral imperative that Vic speaks about, I use different language. I talk about responsibility for the future. Next, please. But many of the messages are the same. Just get rid of these pictures. I'm looking at myself, which is not good. I'm going to make the argument the obvious argument that the present is a thin sliver of time between the past and the future. In some ways, it doesn't exist. And so, as Vic puts it, focusing on the present is in some ways a waste of time. Geological geoscience information is identical in scope with oral, documentary, and archaeological information, and probably other forms of information as well. But it's not identical in origin, methods, or validity. And so there's been a long period of time when human historians and natural historians, and I guess we fall into the natural history category, have argued about whether they are dealing with the same thing. Well, of course, they're not in methods, origin, and validity, but they are in terms of scope. And so I'd like to try to get away from this, what I think is an unhelpful distinction between these various forms of history. And we'll come back to that in a minute. Information about the future can only come from extrapolation, by using envelopes of natural variability, by using analogues, and from modeling. But all, I stress, all of these approaches rely upon data from the past, or they should. Of course, some don't. So, thank you, Ashok, you read my mind. Yes, that's fine. So what does geoscience actually provide? It usually provides the longest records, much longer than anything else that we have gauged records or whatever, but often of lower temporal fidelity than the documentary or instrumentally based records. That is seen by some as a problem. Well, it is to some degree, but it is offset by length of record. As Vic has argued for many years in the paleo flood business, if you don't have a long record, you really don't know what you're talking about. So it's often the only record available as well, where there are no instrumental records, for example. And a different way of saying what Vic said, Earth is an archive of itself, and we need to read that and communicate it far better. Next, please, Ashok. Now, what do most geoscientists do? They make a reconstruction of the past, apart from the sort of work that Harsh Gupta spoke about. Now, this includes accounts of extreme events, particularly important in the modern world. And we get these facile comments. These results are important for management. How? And for whom? For God's sake, stop writing that nonsense unless you actually have a clear idea of who's going to use this stuff and how, because it doesn't help. It annoys people like me for a start. Now, John Ludham asked the question, I thought very well early on. Is reconstruction of the past enough? To me, no, it is not. In the environmental geoscience in particular. It is a dead end in the environmental geoscience, in my view, because we need to look to the future. Reconstruction is sufficient in many fields, and I think the talk about stratigraphy was an extremely good example of that. But in environmental geoscience, it is not sufficient, particularly for studies of earthquakes, floods, soil erosion, etc. And Harsh Gupta gave us a small vignette on paleo tsunami, and of course there's paleoseismology, paleo flood studies, etc., etc. Next, please, Ashok. Short records can lead to absurd conclusions. And some of you may be aware that recently in Eastern Australia, we have been underwater, and our Deputy Prime Minister, not known for his intellect, claimed that the recent devastating floods in New South Wales were an event with a return period of 3,500 years. This is, and therefore, you couldn't predict it, you can't do anything about it, it's too extreme, was basically the subtext. This is alchemy, based on at least 100, no more than 100 years of records and a statistical extrapolation. Paleo flood analysis can help reduce the uncertainty. But there is skepticism of this approach by decision makers, mainly from ignorance and professional silos. And Vic has done an excellent job in the US and elsewhere of overcoming this. In India, I know it is extremely difficult. And in Australia, some progress is being made and elsewhere. Next, please. So what about the future of those events that are not in the geoscience record, the so-called out of analog events that we're probably heading into? Climate change may well produce those that are not in the archive. But remember what Vic said, what has happened can happen again. So in some ways it doesn't matter. But only the geoscience record can provide the envelope of natural variability to know if an event is beyond analog. It's the only record because it's long. But you need to be very careful with analog reasoning. We are told by climatologists that high-resolution climate models are said to reproduce the variability of extremes. They may, but how do you test them over periods of time that are too short from a geoscience perspective, particularly? Much of which is coming from geoscience, much of which the testability is coming. Next, please. So my message is this: take responsibility in forming our future based upon the past. I'm not I agree with the last few comments by Vic about the IUGS. I think there is a place for individual scientists and groups of scientists to play the role of illustrating these points locally, because local issues matter. I've spent a lot of today compiling data from a local river from a wide variety of sources, looking at large floods and small floods, et cetera, et cetera. That will be, I know, will be used locally, and that's quite important. So Ashok, thank you for organizing this, and thank you to Professor Banerjee for helping out as well. And I've enjoyed the session very much.
Thank you so much, Bob. We go to now Professor Frank Mugnay, and he is online. So welcome. You may start now, sir.
Thank you so much. Apologies as I've been traveling and I'm at the airport in Entebbe, but thanks for the speakers. I've just listened in to quite a number of them. So I'm quite happy to be here, and I hope I'll make sense, since I'm a social scientist rather than a geoscientist as such. The only stint I have on earth science was an earth science course I did with Open University way back in London when I looked at this. But then probably this is the missing link that has been there to make geosciences work for development, not only for Africa, but globally. Please, let's go skip the next slide and go to the next one. That was talking about us. In the interest of time, let's skip that one and go to the next one. Let's go to the next slide, please. Yeah, we are trying to link geosciences with the Agenda 2016 of the African Union and the United Nations SDGs. Of course, I will not speak much of that because we have here people who can speak better with confidence on that one rather than myself. But we all know that there is a lot of linkages. So geosciences can be connected or linked to all the UN global agenda. But for Africa's Agenda 2063, which is a global strategy to optimize use of Africa's resources for the benefit of all Africans, it's more critical. So we are going to look at the next slide, which is SDGs, and then skip that because I think everybody knows about that. Then we got the next one, right? Africa's endowments are quite huge. We all know about that, and it's been talked about that Africa has huge endowments. But here I'm linking two assets, mainly of Africa's endowments. That is the youthful population and the natural resources. But this has not benefited Africa either have the demographic dividend or use our natural resources. 80% of Africa's 1.3 billion people is below 35 years. Creating employment in Africa using its vital natural resources is key, and taking advantage of demographic dividends and working with our comparative in our natural resources will be key to take Africa to the next level. So the Africa has very little knowledge of its natural endowments. We know that if you don't have enough knowledge on what you have, then that limits your capacity to plan better. So this has really curtailed Africa from planning for social and economic development. So systematically, Africa is a factor-driven economy, and where we are needing to push it to technological and innovation economies like the rest of the world. Next slide, please. So we want to link geosciences and economic planning, and of course, everybody here has alluded to that. Let me talk about the linkage between geosciences with socio-economic inclusive growth and sustainable development, which is very vital. Geosciences in Africa are only linked to mineral geological survey to attract foreign direct investment, which foreign direct investment have not worked quite frankly for Africa. So we have not been, the geosciences have not been linked to fiscal planning at the national level. And we have therefore find that there is lack of motivation even to get more geoscientists getting into education. The geological surveys in Africa are the least public funded departments, lack of motivation and incentives for young people to investing in geosciences at higher institutions of learning. The result, low intake of geoscientists, students. So we may need to link geosciences with STEM, because everybody has been talking about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But if we took the sciences and consider that as sciences, as we heard from, I think, Becker, is the earth is linked to the earth, that would be very keen. So we need really to push for this to increase the intake of geoscientists students in Africa. Next slide, please. We have the knowledge and natural resource-based sustainable development. Despite huge endowments of both useful population and natural resources, Africa has very little knowledge of its natural. I've just referred to that. But mineral and geological information is lacking both for fiscal and socio-economic planning, as well as attracting responsible investment, but also for other sectors such as medical geology. We hardly have everything being done on medical geology in Africa, and it's lacking. We have a lot of aflatoxins, and we can have even geology, medical geology in clay, for instance, that can remove some of these toxins from our foodstuff that we intake. So knowledge is in natural resources such as minerals, water, forest, soil, renewable energy, and also leading to the conservation and protection and management of our environment is very critical for Africa. Next slide, Mr. Ashok. Next slide, please. So, what can we do to do with the lack of skills in geosciences? There is lack of geoscientists across the continent due to every low intake of geoscientists in higher academic institutions. This might be related to the return on investment in education, because most of African countries have privatized their education systems and people have to pay. So when you invest in education, a lot of students are investing in being lawyers, engineers, medical doctors, and so forth, where they think they have more return on investments than actually taking on the sciences. But we know that you don't have you cannot increase our middle income community in Africa if we can't have the sectors all going at the same time. Since education was privatized, so all these social sectors have taken a bit of challenges to get students joining. But for geoscientists, it's very critical for Africa, and we need to do something on it. Next slide, please. So what would be the intervention and conclusion? I thought of what can we do, because I think UNESCO knows, everybody knows, IGS knows, and everywhere we have just known that there is lack of enough geoscientists on the continent. So what are the interventions and deliberate actions that Africa should put in place to increase intake of geoscientists at higher institutions of learning? This will be based on a triple helix approach: government, institutions, including academic institutions, and then private sector. So what the governments in Africa should invest in geological and mineral information so that young people can actually attracted to go and join the governments to work for them and generate the information that the governments want to plan better through well-financed national geological surveys organizations. Institutions, especially higher academic institutions of learning, should create incentives to increase intake of geosciences. We know that there are some incentives given for those joining STEM at the universities, But I don't know if the geosciences in most of the universities in Africa are taking consideration. So we need to have a deliberate action to ensure that universities increase the intake of geosciences. Otherwise, we are losing young, brilliant young people in Africa who might be contributing to geosciences. The private sector, this should provide support through internships, work placements, as well as contribution to funding of geosciences intakes through what could be possibly social bonds. Companies investing in Africa can have social bonds. These social bonds, they can work with universities and governments to increase intake in geoscientists at the university level. Final slide, please.
Next,
looking at the future, the MAD division, our Mineral Africa Development Institution, is to find homegrown solutions to Africa's challenges in order to promote broad-based growth and sustainable economic development in Africa, backed by a robust mineral resource sector. So one of MAD's key performance indicators, KPI, is to contribute to skills revolution and critical mass in geosciences by generating at least 1 million youth leaders on the mineral resource sector by 2030. This will be done through mindset change, training, capacity building, monitoring, and coaching of young people across the continent. So I would like to thank you. That's my last slide. Thank you so much for putting up and waiting for me. I wish you good luck for the 36 Congress.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. But bringing you essentially introduced my talk. So can I go to the last talk is mine, which is reviews. Singhvi, the last one. Can you go to AK Singhvi? Yes. Yeah. Next one, please. I was thinking of what is the role of IUGS like institutions. What is it we can do to improve the world? What is our social responsibility? Now, IUGS's reach is 121 countries out of 197 countries. So our reach is about half the world, not the full of the world. And that is something we need to be worried about, that we are only catering and looking interactions between this half the world. And we need to be covering the entire 197 countries. As has been said earlier also, we have been focusing mostly on understanding and modeling of Earth processes inside the Earth and around the Earth. And quite a bit of fundamental work has been done, quite a bit of interactions have been done. There are 5 commissions, they do a great job. The flagship initiative, as was mentioned by John, include Deep Time, Deep Earth, resourcing future generations to geochemical baselines, tectonics, and hazards. Now, an important thing to realize is that the trust between science and society is low, and COVID and global change are good examples. The vaccine application has been a success, but there is about half the world is vaccine hesitant. And that means that they don't trust the science or the scientists who have developed those vaccines. And same thing is true about global change. Many people don't believe it. And we need to communicate, as was mentioned by previous speakers. Now, the 3 figures in the bottom are, first is the brand line, which is based on largely on GDP. All those on the north of are the rich countries, and those below this are the poorer countries. If you look, this brand line was made about 30, 40 years ago. If you look at the vaccine doses as recently as January, I took that data, this brand line is followed almost parallelly. That those areas below the brand line are the ones which have not even received single dose of vaccine. And on the northern hemisphere, most of the countries have received reasonable amount of vaccine doses. If we look at the hazards, the geological hazards and the deaths, again, the brand line comes in some way to the fore. And that shows that a lot of work has to be done to be able to bring the remaining, those countries south of the brand line into the mainstream geosciences for future human survival. I think it's important for us to communicate to them as well and create capacities to ensure that they are able to cope up with the emerging challenges through natural disaster, through pandemics, through whatever. And we should also be able to cope up with, as was mentioned previously, that there are global factors and regional effects. And we need to be able to convert those and communicate effectively. The next slide, please. So I think, and the photograph I request you to see, I think that's what the IUGS role should be. IUGS has to assume the role of being a custodian of geosciences, geoscience education, and for developing geoservices. I think geoscience has to provide services as the medical science has been able to provide in terms of pandemic. Now, that means we have to create not only good science, but also create actionable prescriptions for each eventuality and how to handle those across the region. There has to be an affirmative action for regional capacity building. And I think it should be as important, or probably a bit more important than the gender balance we are worried about. Gender balance is a part of regional capacity building. We cannot be satisfied when half the world is unreached by us and half the world needs education, as was mentioned by the previous speaker, Professor Mugnay, that Africa, for example, needs a lot of capacity building. And I think IUGS-like mechanisms can play a key role in developing such mechanisms. And I have some few ideas. So IUGS has to transit from an aggregator of talent pool of few people working on intensively on certain ideas to a proactive creator of regional capacity, of mentorship. This aspect has to be strengthened in IUGS significantly. It may be worthwhile that IUGS ensures or encourages people to at least share 5% of the resources for people from unreached countries. Whether they are members of IUGS or not is not important. This could be in terms of equipment time, in terms of teaching, in terms of web interactions, whatever. But I think on a continued basis, and IUGS can create a mechanism that we really seriously develop the capacities in those areas. We also need to focus more on mission mode programs for science, of course, as is being done, but for products. What are the products we can provide to the society for their use is important. How do we provide? Can we translate a flood record into a kind of a submergence map, which can be used by the local municipal corporations? These products we don't do. And I think IUGS should have a mechanism or can create at least thinking in people that the science has to go from basic science to products and capacity building in unreached areas. Again, we need new focus group. We have many focus groups. We need new focus group to encourage development of geobiology, for example. Now, biology is half geology, as we increasingly realize now, but we have not really taken into account biology, geobiology as a subject. So what is the role of biology in mineral formation to this, and how it has to soil formation? I think is an important thing. We need training in geomathematics. Data mining was mentioned by Dr. Shields. Modeling. These are areas which should be on the forefront of IUGS activity so that people get motivated. Endorsement with IUGS would help people get motivated into these new areas. Geoservices should be the key word for IUGS, that how can we create geoservices, geological, and whatever was told by Bob Boston, Victor Baker comes here. Hazards. We often hear hazard earthquake, we hear explanations about this hazards of this happened and that happened. But can we not have maps with probability of events for floods, mining, and then inform the local people of kind of hazards they're living with and what could be the mitigation potential? Another area which IUGS may want to consider would be an open access to literature. I think people have to get literature in those countries where are not reached. Then there's an enormous aspect of mechanism of protection of IPR for those in vulnerable areas to parachute science. I can jump in because I have the resources. I can go take your help, go to the sites, collect samples, analyze and write papers. That is a parachute science. I think that has to go. and IUGS has to create mechanisms to safeguard the future of those underprivileged for capacity building. And this will be alone would ensure that we have a reasonable informed action on issues from climate change to hazard to resources. You cannot be planning for climate change when the half of the world is ignorant and underfunded or under-equipped to deal with climate change. So I think a focus of IUGS has to be a sociological aspect as well. It should be a mentor for the culture of shared responsibilities, shared resources for a shared future. Thank you so much. And with this, I'd like to take questions, and one of my colleagues in the office will read out the questions, and anybody could respond to. So
hello,
can
everyone.
Yes.
Thank you, Professor Singhvi. We have questions from our delegates. The first question is Professor Özlem. What are UNESCO strategies to address the problem of inculcating geological education among generations at school and university level?
Thank you. It's a really nice question. Yes, it's not in my area because, as I explained, UNESCO has education sector, and within the education sector, we have extensive collaboration with the governments and their curriculum and the programs. Within the IGCP, which I presented, we focus mainly postgraduate and the research topics. So I will be happy to connect with the other departments focusing on the geoeducation curriculum and different areas. And we have several projects mainly in Africa where we receive requests from governments, support for their local curriculum development. And that's where as well we work with IUGS and we provide them support. I hope this helps.
1 second, Madhumita, can you shut down the presentation and bring the photo, everybody on the screen? Madhumita? Yes, that's better. The next question, please.
The next question is for Professor Özlem again. How webinars for IGCP can be organized for schools and colleges?
I mean, everything is possible, so we can start this approach. As I said, we had only for Africa, for Earth Science, African Earth Science Education Network. So in Africa and in Pacific area in the past, we had activities for school level curriculum. But within the IGCP, we have projects led by project leaders, and they deliver these activities in the countries there's a need. So it's always possible that you and scientists can submit proposals which will be assessed. And if they would like to provide educational material, educational activities in specific countries, that will be supported. So we have really a really nice project actually in Tibet area. They even developed films and videos and animations for primary school children to explain the geology and importance of the geology they have. So the way is to submit proposals, and then we can support and collaborate with them.
The next question is for Professor Graham Sheep. The science and technologies are being misused for the global unrest, inequalities instead of peace and tranquility. The hard work and commitment of the scientific community is going waste. This is testimony by the ongoing war. Who is at fault is immaterial, but the innocent people are the sufferer. Any comment from the from Professor Graham Shield on this?
I'm not actually quite sure what the beginning of that was. Could you just repeat the first part?
It says, unfortunately, the science and technology are being misused for the global unrest. Inequalities instead of peace and tranquility. The hard work and commitment of the scientific community is going waste. The ongoing war is the testimony to it. Who is at fault is immaterial, but the innocent people are the sufferers. Can science be, can we comment on this? Can we say anything?
Okay. Yeah, I think that's probably not just for me, it's for everyone to think about. I mean, I agree that who is at fault is immaterial, at least for us scientists. And I think bodies like the IUGS or any means that we have can be used to foster collaborations and to keep them strong through such tragedies. And we can do that through geological societies, through universities, and through the United Nations bodies like the IUGS. So I think we should be fully supportive of that. That's really part of what we can do as human beings is foster scientific collaboration right across the world. I think maybe somebody else can add something to that, perhaps.
Yeah, I can add something. It's John here. John, yeah, agreed. I mean, science doesn't have any political agendas or political boundaries or national boundaries, really. But we are up against a pretty serious global problem at the moment. And IUGS itself has taken a position on the current situation in Ukraine, and quite a strict position, actually. But it's very hard to get the balance on these things.
We are taking up the last question now. It is for Professor Luden. The need to develop and to introduce social responsibility content into the undergraduate geoscience courses and fieldwork so that students will be made aware of the importance of engaging people and communities for mutual benefits. They want to know your opinion, sir.
Yeah, entirely. I mean, I think geosciences needs to be part of the undergraduate and in general the educational programs. And some countries do that quite well, actually. But then, you know, as geoscientists, we tend to often talk to geoscientists about geoscience. And it's very important that we need to sort of broaden our discussion between geoscientists, engineers, social scientists, and business going forward. And so we need to look at that spectrum. And in schools and in universities, people need to understand that if you are trying to solve a climate change issue, for example, that geosciences are equally important as social sciences, actually. But they need to work together.
I think we'll have to stop here. Though there are quite a few questions, but I think we have overshot our time by about 20 minutes. We started a bit late, so maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I would like to thank all the speakers for their time and wonderful thoughts. And I hope we can put this all together in the form of recommendations to IUGS, and which Professor John Ludden can approve printing in episodes or somewhere. And it will be a useful document of some of the thoughts that were presented. I thank all the speakers again, and I thank IUGS, Professor John Ludden, who has been very actively corresponding with me. By the second I get a reply. So appreciate all your cooperations, and thank you for giving me the honor of organizing this panel discussion. And I thank IGC committee for hosting and organizing everything else. Thank you so much. And we will leave now. Thank you, John. Thank
all
you,
the
Victor.
participants.
Yes.
I thank Ashok Singhvi and all the participants in today's program. Many, many thanks for making it a success. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you, Ashok.
Thank you so much, Victor. You can go and sleep now. You can have your sleep now.
I can try.
You have a beer, I suppose, and you'll be all right.
Thank
Okay,
you.
okay, Bob Watson. Dr. Frank is very nice that you made it in between the flights. He was between two flights and he made it to the lecture. So I appreciate Bob Watson. Thank you so much, Bob. Archana,
Thank you very much. I will help with any report that comes out of this, if that's what you would like.
Yes, I would like that, and so something should be recorded. I think
I agree.
many thoughts are profound and makes you think. I think that report will probably make some people think.
Excellent. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, and thanks for enlightening.
Thank you all. Thanks, John. Thanks, Ashok, for all this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Sleep well.
Very nice.
Well.
Thank you, Dr. Lopez. I ran 2 IGCPs in mid-Holocene. So it was on IGCP 349 and 413 on deserts, and we enjoyed it. And it was a very good mechanism that we could raise enormous money based on an IGCP stamping. And we got